Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Ballin in the Boot, Week 9 edition. I mean, it's crazy that the season has really flown by at the high school level, and really we're kind of hitting that stretch in college football as well. We really only talk about a couple of schools college-wise, college football. One of them is the Southern Jaguars, and I'm here with Allison, who covers the Jaguars for Gridiron Football, and he also covered a pivotal district game on
Mhm.
Friday as well. But before we talk about that district game, Alex, we're going to talk about the Southern Jaguars. I mean, a big win to really help them after a disappointing loss last week. Southern bounced back, got a big 25-20 win, and the quarterback carousel stuff continues because Zay T-Set had himself a really good performance in the win. So once again, this quarterback debate has not been solved by the Southern Jaguars.
It hasn't. However, more important, maybe more important than winning, I have really good news. A Southern quarterback actually completed a game. He played the whole time. Zayt said
Wow.
started the game, played every snap, and finished the game. What a novel concept! It only took nine
Yeah.
nine
9 games.
games.
Better
What
late than never.
Better late than never. And it was buoyed by, so a little bit of background about this. Last week I talked about it. It felt murkier than ever that we had no idea who was going to play at quarterback because they both looked pretty rough last week against
Mhm.
Florida A&M. This week, uh, Noah Bowden apparently had some kind of injury during the week of practice and was out for the game.
Mhm. Yeah.
So T-Set started. There was no question about who was going to start, but that didn't mean anything when it came to the streak of having two quarterbacks play every week because T-Set was out a few weeks in the past, and Noah would get subbed out for Jalen Woods in the middle of the game a couple of times. So I thought, when I heard that news that Bowden was out, T-Set was starting, Woods might come in at some point. And there was a point in time where it felt like he might. So early in this game, the offense looked pretty bad.
Mhm.
The first four drives were three punts and a missed field goal. And it felt really, really rough that this was more of the same offense from the Florida A&M game, from the first half of a lot of these games that they can put a game together. Halfway through the second quarter, I don't know what happened, but T-Set just starts clicking. And they go down the field, and he's finding chunk plays through the air. He throws a touch. Kobe Dillon was great in this game.
Mhm.
He throws a touchdown to Darren Morris. They missed the extra point to make it 10-6. So we were down 10-0, and then 10-6, and then again right before the half in a 2-minute drill, which I wouldn't trust this offense in a 2-minute drill the entire season,
Yeah.
never. But in a 2-minute drill, they actually go down the field and they kick a field goal, make it 10-9. So the two teams, so we go into halftime, and the offense keeps clicking coming out of the second half. And there were times where they were getting stopped, but it felt like instead of feeling like you had to like push a boulder uphill to get the offense to do anything, it felt like when the offense wasn't doing something, that's what was out of the norm. That was what was like not normal.
Mhm.
That they start the second half with continuing the 9-0 run they had to end the first half with another 10 points on like the first two drives of the second half. Touchdown, field goal. All of a sudden, we went from down 10-0 to up 19-10 late in the third quarter. This 19-0 run off of four drives. And it was another touchdown pass to Darren Morris. It was more chunk plays from the running backs, Kobe Dillon especially. And he found Dupree Fuller. He found like a bunch of different players. It was just he was throwing the ball all over the field. On the defensive side of things, I will just quickly touch on this. They allowed some yards in this game, but they were largely really good. Kelby was fantastic in the game. He had at least one sack. He also had like a billion pressures, forced
Mhm.
incompletions, stuff like that. Like he was
Right.
unbelievable. Herman Brister had an interception. They were great in the red zone, and they were great on third down. They didn't allow a third down conversion until there were like 40 seconds left in the football game.
Yeah.
They were 0 for 10 on third down. Alabama A&M was going into that like final drive where they're trying to win the game down by 5. Okay, so up 19-10. Uh, After those four consecutive scoring drives, it slows down a little bit, but not because the offense was terrible. It was 3 consecutive drives, the field goal, and then 2 punts, where Southern was like, it was 4th and inches.
Right, right.
And when you have the lead in 4th and inches, it's like you're not gonna be too risky, especially the 2 punts are on their own side of the field. But it felt like it wasn't Southern's offense failing; it was Alabama A&M's defense barely getting by and keeping the other team in the game. But because of that, the number 1 offense in the SWAC, which was really the more exciting matchup going into this.
Yeah.
Number 1 offense in the SWAC is Alabama A&M. Southern had the number 1 defense in the SWAC. Just got kind of torn up a little bit by Florida A&M, but still, and they came to play. Alabama A&M eventually got things going, came back in the game, put together a field goal drive and then a touchdown drive late via Xavier Langford, who has won the job at Alabama A&M over these last month or so and has caught fire. He's been awesome. He was fairly curtailed today through the air. He got some things going on the ground, though. He had 2 rushing touchdowns in this game. So, with 4 minutes to go, they score a field goal and then a touchdown to make it 20-19. So this was one of the first real back and forth games Southern's had all year. Usually it's either Southern kind of is in the lead for most of the game and then wins, or they have to dig themselves out of a first half hole. And they had a first quarter hole like they have had all season this game, but they dug out of it really quickly, found a lead, lost the lead back. 20-19, right. 4 minutes left. ZT said only needs to go kick a field goal. And for the first time ever in this season, I felt fairly comfortable. Felt like, well, now if they get 4th and inches, they're just going to go for it. They're probably going to get it.
Yeah.
They didn't run into that situation on the drive. He found a beautiful pass on 3rd and 17 to convert to Darren Morris. And then at the very end of the game, with a minute left to go, like a minute and 20 seconds, and well within field goal range, instead of opting to kick a field goal, which was risky because Josh Griffin, who is still maybe the best kicker in the SWAC, but has been rickety today and missed an extra point, missed a field goal, they went for the touchdown. He said over the middle, one-handed grab by Dupree Fuller, walking into the end zone, great catch, great throw. He was open. It was awesome. He was maybe even being held, so he only had one arm. He catches it, touchdown. They don't get the 2-point conversion, but Southern takes the lead 25-20. And then Alabama A&M's offense was moving in the 4th quarter. They were able to move the ball down the field a decent chunk of the way in those final 70 seconds, but they ran out of time. There was just not enough time. They didn't have enough timeouts. The defense was too good. And one final pass breakup at the very end of the game in the end zone ends it. And Southern wins a really exciting game, 25-20. This is a huge win, of course.
Yeah.
Because Alabama A&M's kind of out of the race in the SWAC at this point. They already had 3 losses in conference. That was over. But they could play spoiler. Southern had very little to gain in this game and a lot to lose.
Yeah.
So now there are only 3 games left.
One conference loss.
With only 1 conference loss. Southern's got a chance.
Yeah, they do.
And actually, you could kind of project Southern has a game of cushion still, in my opinion. So now we're getting into clinching scenarios and all of that sort of stuff.
Right.
So every team other than Southern and Alcorn State has 3 conference losses in the division right now. Southern beat Alcorn State, so Southern has the tiebreaker. As of right now, if Southern loses another game, then Alcorn State controls their own destiny. But here's the kicker. In the final week of the season, Alcorn State plays Jackson State.
Yep.
The best team in the SWAC, the team that will, if we're being honest, probably win the SWAC championship regardless of who comes out of the West.
Yeah.
Probably, unfortunately. But that means if Southern drops a game, they still have plenty of chances to still win this. So they play Bethune-Cookman next week. They play Arkansas Pine Bluff the week after, and then a bye week in the Bayou Classic against Brandon. Those are all winnable games. Those are all games that Southern should be favored in. Southern is in the place you want to be to get a chance to beat Jackson State again in this to get another chance to beat Jackson State in the SWAC championship game. This was a really encouraging performance all around. This felt like the Alcorn State game, where Zayt said, except the passing offense was what was great here. The defense was, again, gave up some yards, but was effective in high leverage situations, third down, turnovers, red zone, those sorts of things, keeping Alabama A&M off the board when it was necessary. The defense is great all year. You're not worried about the defense. It was a really good performance. But if the offense can click like this, and you're right, the quarterback situation is still a mess.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Is Bowden going to be healthy? Just like every week, is Bowden going to be healthy?
You go with a hot hand after Zay's performance.
If he's healthy, would he play? Probably not. I don't know how you don't start T-Set next week, regardless of Bowden's health.
Right.
This was the best quarterback performance the entire season by any Southern Jaguar in any game. I think T-Set had more yards in the Savannah State game, but that's a Division II opponent. That's different. He threw for 294 yards. He was 24 for 37 with 3 touchdowns and no interceptions.
Yeah.
That is as good of a performance as any quarterback in this SWAC will give you all season.
Mm-hmm.
He was unbelievable in the last 2.5 quarters of the game. If he can play like that, we didn't have that in the Jackson State game. He didn't play like that in the Jackson State game. He went down. That is what gives Southern fans hope that not only can they get to the SWAC championship, but they might screw around and win. Yeah. That is genuinely the Southern team that played this Saturday against Alabama A&M is not the same Southern team that got their skull drugged by Jackson State in September.
Yeah.
They have to keep putting these performances together. They have to be more consistent because they can't play like they did against Florida A&M either. They have to be more consistent. The quarterback play has to be like this. But if it's like this, there's real hope. There's a real chance that they could be going somewhere they really want to be going. Not just winning the SWAC West, but giving whoever comes out of the East, probably Jackson State, a real shot. And that's really exciting around here because they haven't done it in a long time.
Yeah. So, yeah, and that's what Southern fans want to do. I mean, that's what they want to win the SWAC West. They want to play for a SWAC championship and also be Grambling. We'll talk about that in a couple of weeks when that comes around. But you get some momentum. You get a big win over Alabama A&M. You play probably one of your most complimentary type of games all year long. With even though it was a rough start from the defensive side of things, the defense picked it up late. And then the offense, like you said, put up a couple of scoring drives. They got 4 scoring drives. Zayt said had one of the most, efficient, no matter who's been playing quarterback, one of the better performances from a quarterback this year for the Jaguars. So a lot of momentum. You definitely build that back up after a loss last week. So you're 4-1 in conference play, and you return home next week, which is also good. You go back to your friendly confines of at Southern when you play Bethune-Cookman next week. That'll be at 2:00 with more of Alex's recap for Southern and his breakdown of the Southern Jaguars. Make sure to go to our website, gridironfootballusa.com. Now, Alex, let's talk about the high school game that you went to. That was the Central Wildcats, the Zachary Broncos. We pretty much figured that this game, we knew at the beginning of the year that it was a 3-team race in that district. Mm-hmm. It was Catholic, it was Zachary, and it was Central. And a lot of people were saying that this Central team was going to win the district, and they had a lot of people were picking them to beat Catholic. And then Catholic showed why they're a great program, and they just take care of business and beat Central really good in that football game. Zachary, they've been one of the better programs over the last decade, winning state championships. They won 4 state championships under Coach David Brewerton. They've always made deep playoff runs in the quarterfinal, semifinal run. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people were looking at next week at Catholic and Zachary being that potential district championship. But, hey, you have Central in the way. And it was Central that got it done 14-3, beating the Zachary Broncos. Alex, you were there. And we're actually doing Player of the Week submissions, and we got one from the fans saying, just give it to the Central defense. I thought that was pretty funny. But Alex, you were there. You were at the game. Talk about how of a stifling performance it was by Central to get a big win. And really, David Semino had a big playoff win against Neville last year when they went into the playoffs and went to the
Mhm.
quarterfinals. But I feel like right behind that, this was probably his second biggest win as Central's head football coach, being a program like Zachary that's on that same type of level with Catholic over the last decade. So talk about the win, how big of a win this was for the Wildcats.
This was a huge win. They hadn't beaten Zachary in 8 years. Last time they beat Zachary was 2016. And so, regardless of who's going to win the district, and they keep themselves alive in that,
Yeah, right.
or playoff seeding, or whatever, just beating a district rival like this that you haven't beaten in a long time. I mean, to reference recent college football events, think about how big of a deal it would have been if Penn State had actually beaten Ohio State on Saturday.
Mm-hmm. Right,
Right.
right.
That's what this would have been like.
Yeah,
But that's what this was.
yeah.
The one big thing, and I have a feeling you're going to hear a lot about this. You talked about it on Friday a lot in your show with Grant, but you're going to hear a lot about this throughout the show today. It was a rain game.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
And it heavily affected things. I'm
Mhm.
not going to be too. I, I'm happy with any Gridiron Football Player of the Week submissions.
Yeah.
What I will
Mhm.
say is, I would be sort of surprised if it actually made the cut to Central defense.
Yeah.
Not because they weren't great; they were really good. But it's a rain game. Nobody could put a drive together.
Mhm.
Actually, truth be told, Zachary put together the most consistent drive of the game. It just
Yeah.
ended in a field
Mhm.
goal.
Right.
Um, and Central's 2 touchdowns, I'll go ahead and touch on this now. Central
Yeah.
didn't put a drive together either. Central had 2 touchdowns. One was a pick,
Mhm.
um, and then a run by the running back and punching in by Jackson Furman on the one. So it was 2 play drive, one big run, and then the 1 yard scramble. And then the other one was this crazy sequence that I'll talk about later, but it ended with a 77-yard pass from not Ruffin. Ruffin's the
Caleb
running back for
Wallace.
Zachary. My brain is scrambled.
Oh yeah, yeah, Zachary.
From Furman
Oh, Jackson
uh,
Furman. Yeah, yeah.
to I'm completely blanking on names today. Womack, I believe, is
Yeah.
the
Mhm.
receiver's name.
Yeah.
Which was an awesome play, a perfect throw, perfect catch. But
Keith and Womack.
that's not to discredit Central's win. They won. They were the better team. They won in the way that you have to win in a rain game. They were more physical. They limited big plays, and they were able to make the big plays needed in the high leverage situations in order to win the game. But Central's defense was really good, but it's always you're grading on a curve when it's a rain game, right? It's just a little bit different. But they were truly on paper the reason why they won the game, right?
Mhm. Right,
So
right.
14-3. Zachary wasn't able to put together drives, even though DeVecchio Ruffin,
Mhm.
the running back for Zachary,
Yeah.
they're falling off trees in this state, man.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
it's insane. It's insane
he
how many
looked,
good running backs there are. I
he
mean,
looked, and he's a senior too. He looked awesome.
yeah, yep, yep,
Like even in a game where his team lost, the one he was the reason why they scored the one field goal. He had this big run, and they were able
yeah,
to put together a couple first downs. Ruffin, he was never going down on first contact. He was always, getting any extra yards he can get, fighting for those extra yards. He was a really physical back. He looked great.
hmm
And Zachary's run game was, I think, what was kind of billed going into the game as being really exciting.
yeah,
And he was awesome. Caleb Gonzalez had his moments. I thought the quarterback for Zachary. I thought that I thought the rain really impacted things on
yeah,
that front.
right,
Um, the big interception that he had early in the game that led to the first Central touchdown was like the ball kind of slipped out of his hands.
hmm
And it was a great play made by the defensive back, who I also can't remember the name of. I'm terrible. But
Oh,
it was
Rennell Steven,
yes, Renell
oh,
Stephen.
Stephen Rennell,
Stephen
yeah,
Renell. Yes,
yeah, Stephen
yes.
Rennell,
I apologize. Stephen Renell had the interception. Um, but so that interception kind of fell out of his hands. It was a great play by Stephen, but by Renell, but it wasn't. He wasn't as. I feel like the rain affected him more than it affected the Central offense at times. And then that leads to what was the most exciting sequence of events the entire game. So we're in the third quarter. Central was up 7-0. Zachary just got the field goal to make it 7-3 on their first drive of the second half. And Central, Jackson Furman throws an interception of his own.
Yeah.
The rain was affecting him too. I don't want to be too.
Oh yeah, I mean, both teams had to deal with it. I mean,
both teams had to deal with it. I don't want to make it sound like I'm making too many excuses for Zachary, because Central dealt with it better.
Yeah.
Like I should make that clear.
Yeah.
He throws an interception too. All of a sudden, Zachary has the ball in like the 25.
Yeah.
And or like the 20 or 15. And then they start going backwards. They like put the ball on the ground, fall on it, huge loss. All of a sudden it's 4th and 20. You can't kick a field goal. The two teams combined to miss 4 field goals in this game. You can't kick a field goal from this range in this like monsoon. So Caleb Gonzalez has his best play of the game, throws it over the middle, somehow gets caught by one of his receivers. From where I was, I could not tell you who it was. I apologize. But gets caught by one of his receivers. They get all the way down to the 2-yard line, and all of a sudden, it felt like 3 minutes ago, Central was just coming out of halftime, up 7-0 in complete control of the game. And all of a sudden, Zachary's 2 yards away from taking the lead.
Yeah.
On the next play, fumbled handoff. Central falls on it.
Man.
They get the ball back on their own, like 5-yard line. And Jackson Furman has the best drive of the game. From 95 yards out, he gets a couple of plays, gets a couple of first downs, and then on the 23-yard line, he uncorks this beautiful deep ball to Keithon Womack. Perfectly in stride, catches it, outruns the defender, 77 yards in one play for a score. 14-3. And the game is basically over.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Because an 11-point lead in a monsoon is effectively a 40-point lead. Like, it's sort of what it feels like.
14-point swing in that sequence,
It was a 14-point swing.
Yep. So that was the difference in that football game, Alex. 14-3 final score.
The one final thing I did want to talk about was something that Coach Semino discussed after the game, which was I thought it was a really accurate portrayal of kind of the flow of the game. After they scored that touchdown, Zachary kind of had to get out of their element a little bit, because again, it's that running attack that I think it felt really like interesting going into it. They had to start throwing the ball more, and Central's defensive front looked unbelievable in that second half. It felt like they were living the back, because they could kind of pin their ears back on later, like longer down distances, to go after the quarterback and rush the passer, and they were affecting that. The defensive front looked fantastic, and that is the part that someone wants to make a submission. Maybe KJ Mays is the guy to make a submission for.
Yeah.
I don't know what his exact stat line was, but I know he had 2 sacks in the fourth quarter alone. Including one on what felt like
the linebacker, because I know you got DK as the defensive end. This is
the linebacker, KJ Mays. And so he had 2 sacks, I believe. One of them was on basically Zachary's final chance, 6 minutes left to go in the game, 4th and 5. They have to score here if they want to have any chance. And he just no chance. Straight in the backfield, just flattens Caleb Gonzalez. And from there, the Mays brothers looked fantastic. The defensive front as a whole was great. That looked truly dominant in that second half, and they kind of took over the game. And both teams had to deal with the rain. Central dealt with it better. And these were pretty miserable conditions to be playing.
Oh yeah, it was miserable, man.
You were there in the Dunham Episcopal game.
Same thing. Everything that you said, same thing. It felt like nobody can get any footing. Weather was terrible. It felt like if you scored a touchdown, it did not feel like 6 points. It felt like 20 points. That's how big any scores were in that football game. But to your point, it was tough, but it was going to be the team who dealt with it the best, who dealt with the weather conditions the best, and it was the Central Wildcats. And right now, Alex, we have if Zachary is able to defeat Catholic, you have a 3-way tie for district. So.
Assuming Central wins in week 10 as well, which they
right. Which got to see who they play.
Scottsboro, I believe.
Scotlandville? Yeah,
Scotlandville. I'm sorry, Scotlandville.
Yeah, Scotlandville. Okay, so if Central wins next week, and if Zachary, now Central's got to pull for Zachary. If
Right.
Zachary beats Catholic,
Turn right around.
yeah, it turns right around. So they got to pull for Zachary to beat Catholic on Thursday, and if they do, it's the three teams we talked about going to the year as your co-district champions.
Yeah, and keeping their hopes alive for district is really important. But it felt more important was the feeling that they had to go and beat Zachary. This sort of almost white whale.
I feel like that they are a program like the Catholics, like
Yes.
the Zachary's. You got to beat one of them, and they did. That's why I still think, Alex, that but besides the big playoff win over Neville last year, this is only Coach Semino's second year, and what he's done is absolutely amazing in his second year at Central. This feels like the second biggest win of his career already at Central, getting a win over Zachary.
And it's one of those wins that I think will stay there for a while.
Yeah.
Right. When Semino, whenever his time at Central is done, which will probably be a while from now, if we had to guess.
Yeah.
Whenever he ranks, not that people do this normally, I'm a weirdo. Whenever he ranks his biggest win, this will be pretty high up there by the end.
Yeah.
Any state championships, the first big one against Neville's big, but this will stick around for a while because it's a big deal to beat Zachary, to feel like, especially after the Catholic loss.
Yeah.
Where I wasn't at that game, but Catholic won pretty handily.
Yeah.
It was like a big win.
Yeah.
There is a little bit of the fear of what if Zachary comes in here, walks into Central's place, and just takes it from him, right? And even in a rain game, what if it was 20-6 Zachary, and Zachary just like won by 14, but it felt like it should be more, and that could have been really like demoralizing, really disheartening for a team that has aspirations to make a deep playoff run.
Right.
So for them to win the game, that's huge. Because it makes you feel like you're going into next year, regardless of what happens in the playoffs, and I'm sure they'll be great.
Right. They can make a run Division One non-select. They can make a run. Yep.
Yeah. It makes them feel like they'll be back next year. They're gonna give another run against Catholic. They know they can beat Zachary. When you can beat a team, that makes a huge difference. And now they will. And so this is a huge win for Central, of course. And it won't be the last time we talk about either of these teams. I'm sure someone's going to be at the Zachary Catholic game, if I had to assume.
Yeah, it's going to be one of y'all. I was planning on going to it, but I got I actually have to do some PA work on Thursday. So that leaves a spot open for one of y'all. So to take that on Thursday, but that's going to be a huge game. Catholic, Zachary, two of the Titans in Baton Rouge just over the last decade, going at it. Alex, continuing a good job, man. I know you braved the bad weather conditions as we did, as a lot of our crew did this past weekend. So thanks, Alex, and we'll catch up next time on another episode of Ballin' the Boot.
Thank you.
Hey guys, welcome to another segment of Ballin' in the Boot. Of course, I'm your host, Jason Chachere. I'm joined by Darryl Felker. Darryl does a great job for us as a beat writer for us for high school football, for gridiron football. Darryl, you actually decided to go see a game on Thursday last week, and on Halloween, by the way, and you got yourself a pretty good treat. Not really on the trick side of things, but more on the treat side of things. You're able to enjoy a really good football game between the U High Cubs and the Madison Prep Chargers. Actually, a big football game because a district championship was on the line between both these two programs. Two great football programs in the Baton Rouge area. Of course, it came down to a touchdown game. Darryl, you're there. I'm going to let you talk about it and talk about which was a game that everybody was looking forward to between the Chargers and the Cubs.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, it was a different game Thursday night, Halloween night. So, yeah, it definitely had a different kind of feel to it. But it actually, I actually wasn't even sure that the game was going to happen because it had been raining heavy all day. And even when I left the house for the game, on the way there, it was still raining. Got there, it was still raining. But, I mean, yeah, they decided to line up and go for it. So, yeah, it was a really big game, like you said, district championship. They both were undefeated coming in the district. U High, they hadn't lost since week 2. when they lost to Rummel, and then they came back and beat Catholic the next week. So they've been rolling. Madison Prep started the year off 0-3, but haven't dropped a game since. So they've been rolling. And yeah, I was really excited for the game. And yeah, to start, I mean, I think both teams have so many kind of like quote unquote star players that I think the defenses came to shine, and just especially with the conditions, it was going to be a running type of game. It wasn't going to be a 300, 400 passing yards kind of game for either team. So it was going to come down to who could run the ball and who could really get the most stops on defense. And to start the game off, I mean, ULab, they came out and, I mean, they had a few drives back and forth where they weren't able to score, but they were the ones to crack the zeros first, and their linebacker / running back Alec Haynes, he was the one that actually got in for him on a 3-yard run, and yeah, I mean, it was a good drive. They were just able to finish on it. So yeah, he got in. They went for 2 because I'm not sure if the kicker situation. It was super wet out there, so I both teams kind of just settled on going for 2, and I wasn't mad at it. So they ended up not getting the attempt though, so it stayed at 6-0. And yeah, Madison Prep, that kind of woke them up because I mean it was a really high intensity game. It was, even though the stands weren't as packed as it would have been if it had been like a Friday night game or even just a better weather, a better atmosphere, because every fan out there either had a poncho on or they had an umbrella. So there was no just sitting out enjoying the game. So, but yeah, I mean, both teams kind of brought that intensity, but I think when ULab got on the board first, I think it kind of woke Madison Prep up a little bit. And yeah, I was really pleased with their quarterback, Tylen Johnson.
Yeah.
I mean, he made multiple plays on 3rd, 4th down. It was one 4th down later in the game. It was like a 4th and 9. And he rolled left, broke like 2 or 3 tackles, came back up the middle, and put his head down and ran through 2 or 3 guys to fight for the first down. So, I mean, yeah, and just that kind of game, just being a quarterback like that to where you can't really impact the game as much throwing the ball, just finding a way to impact the game. It was really big. So he would lead them down the field. But Alfred, their running back, Alfred McKnight, he would be the one to actually punch it in, and they would go for the extra point attempt, but it was blocked. So I think after that, both teams were kind of like, yeah, the extra points, we'd rather just go for 2. So the game was tied 6-6 at that point, probably about 5 or 6 minutes left in the first half. And the Madison Prep defense, which was very impressive all night, I was really, really pleased with their defense because, I mean, the U High, they were a really good offense, really good defense, just top to bottom. They were a really good team. They're missing some players, of course, to injury, but I mean, it's still a really good roster. So I was really pleased with how they were able to get stop after stop and give their offense chances. So they came back, they forced a stop, and they came back and scored with about like 3 minutes left in the first half. It was Alfred McKnight once again. He got in, and on the 2-point conversion, Tylen Johnson, he actually kept it himself and got in, and that put the score at 14-6. And I mean, at the bottom, you see that was the final. I mean, it was a really, really defensive game. And I mean, while both teams were able to move the ball, like ULab, they would get the ball back with the 3 minutes left. They would drive down within like the 10, 15-yard line, but they would run out of time, run out of downs. And yeah, with 12 seconds left, it was the last play. And they ended up throwing it up into double coverage, just having it swatted down, taking it into the half. So coming out of halftime, they got the ball first coming out of half. So they put another great drive together all the way down the field. But Madison Prep, their defense, it was just, when it mattered all night, they were able to stand up and get a stop. So they forced a 4th and 1, and they had Alec Haynes in at running back once again, and it was a combination. Like I said, this game was heavily impacted by the conditions. So I mean, it was nonstop rain the whole time, heavy rain. So the ball kind of went over his head. He probably could have caught it, but it was just unexpected, super fast snap, and it just flew over his head and ruined the drive. So that was one opportunity where I really felt like they needed to score coming out of halftime. It would have been a big momentum swing for them, and the Chargers defense being able to get that stop, it kind of swung the game. So yeah, they would get the ball back, they would drive down, they would have their own fumble inside the 10-yard line as well. So I mean, the defense is really came to play, and I mean, that's how it was for the whole second half. And it came down to U-High. They had a game-winning drive with about like 2 minutes left, and they were moving down the field. And the Chargers safety, his name is Javen Holmes.
Yeah.
He was actually a Player of the Week nomination. Actually, yep. So I mean, I got to see him in person, and it was a play. Emil Picarella, he dropped back, and Zay Martin was coming down the sideline, and it was like a perfect ball. It was about to drop right into his hands, and Javen Holmes came from the safety position, came and undercut it and just made a crazy play. Like it literally felt like he came out of nowhere. It felt like a perfect pass. It was about to drop right into Zay Martin's hands and came out of nowhere. And well, I thought he picked it off, but he was ended up being ruled out. So it gave the Cubs another opportunity. They still had about like a minute left. And yeah, I mean, it would end up coming down to a 4th down, and Joshua Herbert, their cornerback, he would end up getting the game-sealing pick with 2 seconds left. And I mean, their sideline, their fans, they just went crazy. I mean, it was a really good game, really deserving game. I really felt like whoever won this game, they were going to have to earn it, because neither team, they understood the importance of this game, and neither team wanted to lose the game. So they both had that grit, had that fight, but Madison Prep would be the ones that ended up coming out on top.
Yeah, I mean, huge win for Madison Prep, like you mentioned, 14-6. And I was following along with your posts live on Thursday, and also watched the last minute or two on the LHSA network. So I mean, it was an incredible ending. Madison Prep. I mean, it was one of those things that you. I mean, you can say it was a little bit of an upset. You know, a lot of people were expecting U-High to win this football game, but you can say it's a little bit of an upset, but it wouldn't shock you if Madison Prep got the win, and Madison Prep really put their best effort and where we got revenge on U-High after being them pretty good last year. And 2 years ago, this game went to overtime. So, and yeah, so a big win for Madison Prep to win the district. I know a lot of people say in this day of age in high school football that not a lot of people care about district champions. I still think these teams really do. Because it's a championship at the end of the day. So, I mean, that's one of your goals. I mean, you want to win a district championship. You want to set yourself up for a deep run in the playoffs and possibly a road to a state championship in the Superdome. So, a big win for Madison Prep. Really huge win for Landry Williams and this program. I mean, it seemed like ever since the Mandeville loss, even though they lost that football game, this team started 0-3, but they've won every game since then. But they played a tough schedule in those 3 football games to start the season. And this team has really bounced back, and I guess they used that early part of the season to really help them here. Darryl, I know it was crazy with the bad weather, and I know a lot of people want to get out of there. But did you get a chance to talk to Coach Williams or anybody from Madison Prep after the game?
Oh no! After the game, I mean, literally everybody just got out of there. I mean, I did. They were on the sideline, you know. They were just taking in the moment. I mean, Madison Prep, they really, like you said. I mean, some teams, the district championship, it might not be as much as a state championship, but you could tell it meant something to them, and like they were just the energy on the sideline. You could feel just how proud they were of their team. Because like you said, I mean, I did an interview with one of their receivers, Keon Robinson, earlier in the season. And it was literally the weekend after they had lost that 3rd game. They were 0-3. And I was like, I mean, what do you know, I mean, nobody wants to start 0-3, but what do you guys do from this point on to just turn things around? And he was like, yeah, I mean, we had some tough matchups and we just didn't play how we need to play. And he was like, he was like, I'm telling you now, we're not losing no more. And, I mean, everybody says like, oh,
Yeah, right.
you're not going to lose. But, I mean, they really have shown up week in and week out and have not dropped the game since. And, yeah, I mean, this district championship was kind of just the cherry on top to show them that, like, yeah, earlier in the season, but right now they have things rolling. And I'm really, really excited to see what they can do in the playoffs.
Right. I mean, Madison Prep is on a roll. They've actually won a state championship a couple years ago. Zion Chris was the quarterback then. If you know Zion Chris, he's actually the starting quarterback at Houston. They just got a big win over Kansas State this past Saturday. So, yeah, they've always had some really good athletes. And, I mean, Tylen Johnson is another one you mentioned at the quarterback position. We thought if it was like great weather, perfect weather, that would have been quite a quarterback showdown between Tylen Johnson and Mil Picarella. But how impressed were you with Tylen? Just find a way. It wasn't pretty. The weather wasn't pretty, but just find a way to help lead his team to get the victory.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a different kind of, like, he showed a different kind of leadership, because it's easy to just, when you're in the game plan where you're the quarterback and you're making all the throws, making all the plays, it's a lot on you. So you can always be kind of looked at as the reason they lose or the reason that they win. But this game was very different. I mean, both teams had to run heavy, and this game kind of could have felt sometimes like it was kind of out of his control, because he wasn't able to air it out how they usually would. But as the game went on, he actually went down with an injury earlier in the game, but he came back out, and I don't know if, just getting hit just kind of woke him up. But I mean, after that, he would put his head down and run at any given time that the team needed it. I mean, if it was the best case scenario, he had no problem doing it all night. And I think that was what I was most pleased with, because I've seen his highlights, and I mean, he has a great arm, great accuracy, and he showed it off a little bit, where he could. But just being able to extend plays, improvise when needed, and like I said, I mean, it was multiple third or fourth downs where if he wasn't the quarterback, I'm not sure that they would have gotten the first. I mean, it was literally like, showed elusiveness, decisiveness, where it was like, yeah, sometimes I need to stay in the pocket and I need to keep my eyes downfield trying to find something. Sometimes I need to roll out and still keep in mind that I still can scramble. And I mean, it was just, it was a great performance, truly. Like I said, I mean, I think my favorite play from the night really was that 4th and 9, where he literally, I mean, you'll see it on my Twitter or in the highlights. I mean, it was no reason he should have gotten that first down, but I mean, he was, and yeah, I was really pleased with him overall.
Yeah, and it was a running game that made the difference. You talk about Alfred McKnight getting 2 touchdowns, which were the 2 touchdowns scored by U High. I mean, by Madison Prep. U High. You talked about without a key figure. Keelan Moses is the big name that he suffered an injury against St. Paul's, the game that was at, and he hasn't returned back since. But Alec Haynes, it seemed like he's filling in that role for Keelan Moses, the Nicholls State commit, as not only a linebacker, a leader of this defense, but also a running back as well, running the football too, kind of being that hammer when they need him. So, looking at it, my question about U High, because I mean, credit where credit's due. Madison Prep deserved to win the football game. They dealt with the conditions better. They deserve to be district champions, and they're going to be a threat in the playoffs. Switching to U High, it seems like when this team has not played as good, weather has been a factor. I mean, when you look at it, they barely beat Woodlawn 3-0 in bad field conditions. The game that I called for VSN, which was their last loss against Rummel, it was bad weather in that game in the second half too. And then you go into this game, they lose to Madison Prep. How much you think the weather really factored in U High, and is that a problem you think for U High moving forward, especially if it comes to bad weather situations?
Yeah, I definitely think. I mean, like we said, I mean, the weather is the weather, and it impacts both teams. So I mean, kudos to Madison Prep for being able to just figure out how to work through it a little bit better. But U High, I mean, they're still U High. I mean, you can never count them out. Like you said, most people heading into this game would have considered them the favorite, and I mean, this was kind of a quote unquote upset. But yeah, I was a little bit confused, I'd say, because I mean, when you look at their roster, I mean, we have the Gridiron Football Bowl game commit Preston Jones on the O line. They have another 5-star O lineman, Lamar Brown, and I thought that the running game would be one of their biggest strengths, honestly, and it wasn't. I mean, I'll say, like I said, I mean, I don't look at it as U High didn't do a good enough job. I just think that Madison Prep just was hungry for it on defense. I mean, they made the plays that needed to be made because, yeah, U High was able to drive down the field. They were able to move the ball. I mean, even in the conditions, Emil Picarella, he still had some really great throws, some really great plays, and I mean, Zay Martin, I was really pleased with him, just being able to finally see him in person. And I mean, their offense is still electric, but I definitely think that the conditions and just not being able to pass maybe as much as they want to, I definitely think it plays into why they ended up losing this game. I mean, because I genuinely think if they were able to throw it, of course, Madison Prep's offense would have been different as well. But I do think they would have been a little bit more successful on offense if they were able to establish more of a balance. But I really do think, I mean, as much as it sucks to say, I do think that Keelan Moses was a big miss for them, especially in a game like this, because just having him in that running back role and in that linebacker role, I mean, it was a running kind of game. So having him fill the gap how he does, it would have been helpful for them on defense. And then, like we said, Alec Haynes, he's been filling in that role. He filled it in, I mean, as well as he could. I mean, so, kudos to him. But just the small things like the snap that went over his head where it kind of could have been caught, but also the timing was just kind of thrown off. I think, with Keelan Moses, maybe he catches that ball, maybe he catches that snap, and maybe he gets in. And I mean, when in a game where it comes down to literally 2 or 3 plays, you just not being able to convert down near the end zone, or you not being able to get a stop. I mean, that's all that Madison Prep needs.
Yeah, well, big win for Madison Prep. They're definitely in charge of the district championship, and keep an eye on them. We're going to talk about the playoffs at the end of next week, but keep an eye on the Chargers to make a run in the Division II select playoff bracket. Darryl, continue to keep a good job, man, and we'll find out what game you'll be covering in the regular season finale.
Yep. I'm excited. Week 10 playoffs coming up. I can't wait. I'm excited to see what all the teams do when it's winter go home.
Absolutely, Darryl. Well, keep up with Darryl's work at our website. You can find us at gridironfootballusa.com. We'll talk with you next week on Ball in the Boot, Darryl.
All right. Thank you, Jace.
Hey, guys. Welcome to another segment of Ballin in the Boot. I'm your host, Jace Lejeune. I'm joined by Grant Chachere of Crescent City Sports and River Sports Media. Grant's doing a good job covering high school football around the state of Louisiana. We bring him here to give us some really good insight. Week 9, it was a rainy, well, for us, not really necessary for Grant, but it was a rainy week 9 for a lot of our guys. But it was like New Orleans was spared last week. But Grant, you had 3 great games in a row, Thursday and Friday and Saturday. I'm not going to talk about the Saints for Sunday because that was rough in general. But Thursday and Friday and Saturday, you had 3 straight really good games to cover. We get a chance for you to talk about that. But Grant, we're approaching week 10 as we're speaking about it. The regular season's almost over. It's really flown by, and you get one more week to talk about the regular season before we talk about playoff time, Grant. It's unbelievable we're at this point.
Yeah, I mean, some of the kids I went to last week, I mean, well, all 3 of them were really crazy. I mean, obviously they all have crazy endings, but all like in 3 different ways of endings. And Jay, sometimes when you look at those games, sometimes you have to look past the results, look at the bigger picture. And yes, I'm kind of yes, I'm making the Saints joke right now. I mean, of course, as we're recording this, I mean, we just before we got the news broke that Dennis Allen was fired. So I mean, pretty sure everyone, not only in New Orleans, but I mean, really, especially really mostly in New Orleans, but also elsewhere across the state. The people were rejoicing that the Saints fired Dennis Allen, but especially New Orleans because I mean, obviously you're in New Orleans and the local media is going to be on it. And, of course, I work for Chris City Sports. So I know Ken's going to be on, and it's going to be a 24/7 cycle for them the next 2 or 3 days, or really the whole entire week. I mean, just you got that. I mean, of course, not only have this news, but remember, it's also the Saints are also playing the Falcons. So it's just going to be a big week just for local media here in the city of New Orleans. And then also, LSU, Bama. And then also, as we're talking about high school football, it's week 10 of the high school football season. We got some big games coming up, of course. The district championship between Rummel and Carr for the Catholic League title. I mean, St. Aug Curtis would be a good game as well. There's a lot of really big time games in New Orleans this week. So I mean, this is if you're in sports media in New Orleans, you're having a field day right now. I mean, I mean, it's gonna be busy. I mean, I guess I can say it's like you dread it. You're like, oh, great, we have content. So
yeah, well,
like,
to talk about.
Luckily, I don't cover the Saints, so I can just stick with high school and LSU. So
that's enough in itself. And then, like you said, big week. We'll be covering a lot of it. LSU Bama week. It's always big, and it's going to be a big game on Saturday as well. We'll talk more about that as the week goes on here at GridironFootballUSA.com. Now, Grant, let's talk about the high school slate and get you a chance to talk about the 3 games that you covered, and all 3 of them, I mean, were thrilling endings. And we're going to go and start with your Thursday game, Riverdale East Jefferson, and this is not a lot of times you expected before the season that a district championship will go down to Riverdale and East Jefferson, but both teams have had great seasons this year, and it was a time for them to say, hey, we've seen usually in the past, like John Ehret, come out of this district a whole lot, but they've struggled recently this year. But Riverdale and East Jefferson are having really good seasons, and it was on Halloween, and it had a scary, eerie ending to that one. So, Grant, break that one down.
I wouldn't say it was scary, but it was definitely eerie. I mean, considering what one of the craziest plays I've seen, covering high school football happened on Halloween night. But East Jefferson and Riverdale was not. I mean, if you told anybody that hey, the District 10 5A district title will be determined by the on Halloween night between Riverdale and East Jeff, people looked at you like, what are you talking about? Just because Riverdale, well, for one, has never won a district title in its history. And then East Jeff, they haven't won a district title since 2013, which is the year that they won the state championship and they beat Carr. Right before Carr was on the cusp of their dynasty in the mid to late 2010s. So I mean, and actually, I think Carr was defending state champions that year. Actually, so I mean, it was a huge win for the school. Like, still the biggest win in the program's history by far. I mean, no, obviously it's the state championship, but not you beat a team like Carr, who's defending state champions. But you mentioned John Ehret. I mean, John Ehret, yeah, they've been kind of the top, one of the top dogs, along with Chalmette. Chalmette, of course, right. Chalmette, of course, is now in a district with all the Slidell schools, and then I think it was I forgot what the other team was. I think it was Blue. It doesn't matter. Yeah. But anyway, they moved. They started playing schools in the north. They're in the district with some of the schools in the north are now with most of the Slidell schools. But Jay, so like a lot of people thought that despite them having a weaker team this year, and also you exclude a team like Chalmette, a lot of people thought that John Ehret was going to run away with this district, but that wasn't the case. Riverdale beat them in the very first district game of the season, and then of course John Ehret lost against East Jeff, and so that led to East Jeff and Riverdale meeting up for the district title game, and they were both undefeated going to district. And I thought Riverdale was going to win. But to be honest, I think Riverdale was stronger offensively. Clarence Foster in his first year has done a great job. He's done not only done a great job. I mean, they beat Ehret for the first time in their program's history, and they're on the cusp of a district title for the first time in their program's history. And this guy who was a very successful defense coordinator at Warren East. He was there for like 5 or 6 years and really rebuilt that defense. Because before that he got there, the defense was struggling, and when he was there, the defense was always a constant fixture when you talk about Easton, just given the players that they produced over the last few seasons. And that, we're going to talk about Easton a little bit, but I think him leaving for Riverdale was probably one of Easton's. I think that's an underlooked aspect of the way Easton struggled, but we'll get to that in a second.
Right.
But also Brian Glover has done a great job with this East team in his second year. They're 5-3, and they're put in the picture of they're had an opportunity to win the district title. And at first, East Jeff took the lead. They tied a 7-0 lead after I think it was a 30+ yard touchdown run by Jaden Ugubaway, and then Riverdale got on the board first because they got pick 6. They returned it back, and then they both teams scored again and ended up being a tied 13-13 game midway through the fourth quarter. And Riverdale, the final drive of the game, speaking of the Erie part, Riverdale had the ball last on offense. Yeah, and they look like they're driving the ball down the field pretty efficiently. Rita Ghazali was throwing the ball. I mean, he's been one of the better passers in the New Orleans area all year, and he looked confident going at driving down the field and leading his team to victory. But then Igo Henrique, who was the defensive end for East Chef, he made a great play coming off the edge and strip sacking Ghazali, leading to Poche. I think Jared Poche picking up the ball and scooping it up and scoring a 60-yard fumble recovery for a touchdown with 30 seconds left. Riverdale got the ball back, but four straight incomplete passes, and East Chef wins their first district title in 10 years.
Yeah, huge win, and talk about that play, right? I mean, that's probably a play that's going to live a long time in the East Jefferson lore, winning a game like that when it looked like it was going to be bleak at the time for East Jefferson in that football game.
And that's one of those cool moments when you have a play like that. Like I asked you, Coach Shea after the game, he's like, just to be a part of a play like that. Iga Henrique, of course, making the strip sack, and then Drew Prochet picking up this ball and scoring the game-winning touchdown. I mean, that's an incredible part of that's something that community is going to remember forever, just because of that play. It was a crazy play. It's going to be hard to escape, and you're going to be telling those guys are going to be telling their kids and their grandkids about how they they won the district title in that fashion. So it's a pretty cool ending for a pretty good game that determined the district title. So congratulations to East Jefferson High School, and of course Brian Glover for a job well done this season.
Absolutely. This is pretty much as they've been talked about. And I mean, as far as a great season for them, probably since when Nick Saltramaggio led that team to a state championship. So it's been a really good season for East Jefferson. So that was your game on Thursday. And then we'll talk about your game on Friday. Mandeville and St. Paul's. I mean, that was one of the top matchups in the state, really. St. Paul's having a really good season. We knew Mandeville was going in undefeated when in that contest. Was one of the, I believe, the 16 teams that were undefeated in the state, but they had a severe loss earlier in the week with losing Nate Shepard out for the season. And after the tear that he's had this season and the month of September he had, it's a shame no one has an all-time great won't have to put is not going to play another snap at the end of the year for the Skippers. But they do have a great running back. He actually went to one of our camps this year, Isaiah Bayham, backing him up. And that's a really good pleasure that Mandeville does have. But he is still a really good running back and would start pretty much at most other places. But he had a Duke commit right in front of him. So still, it's a little bit of adjustment period for Mandeville. But, hey, they had a district championship. They had an opportunity to win and seal the deal if they were able to beat St. Paul's. And it was another classic finish, a great football game. Like you said on Friday nights in the Bayou, that was probably the craziest and best atmosphere that you've been a part of. So this was another classic finish. Grant, break this one down.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a rivalry game, of course. But of course, a lot of the kids at St. Paul's, some of the kids over there at Mandeville High School, because a lot of those guys from St. Paul's actually do live in Mandeville as well. I mean, I know St. Paul's is Covington, but there's a lot of people that live in Mandeville that went to St. Paul's. Matter of fact, what's your name? Kendall Duncan, who's one of the sports reporters for WDSU, actually went to school with. Her older brothers all went to St. Paul's, and she went to Mandeville. So there's a lot of familiarity between these two programs. So a lot of these people know each other. A lot of these people work with each other. So there's a great atmosphere. And matter of fact, that during the game, this Mandeville student section was chanting "Daddy's money" at St. Paul's, and it was a really good high school atmosphere. Yeah. So I mean, it was an awesome experience. I had a great time. And the game lived up to its hype. I know that Nate Shepard was out for the game, and the game lost. A lot of people were going to cover the Mandeville St. Paul's game, but because Nate Shepard, was out, and he announced his injury, he's going to be out for the year. A lot of people backed off and decided to go to Destrehan and Humble, which I don't blame him either. Destrehan Humble is a great game as well, big time rivalry game. Destrehan ended up winning, which we'll talk about in a second. Kind of sorry for the spoilers. But game lived up to hype. Isaiah Bayham, and I don't think he rushed for over 200 yards against Ponchatoula. It was a matter of how he was going to do against St. Paul's, and then he ran for 266 yards and 2 touchdowns. And St. Paul's had a hard time trying to stop him all night. Lil Kenny Sears, the offensive coordinator. I know him called Lil Kenny because obviously his dad's named Ken. So a lot of people at St. Paul call him Lil Kenny. It was just kind of funny, even though he's not a little man at all.
No, he's not.
He's really not. But he told me after the game that Isaiah Bayham was just an inch below Nate Shepard. And that just shows you how good of a player Isaiah Bayham really is. And that kind of reminds me of it's sort of similar because obviously, however, the backup was actually better than the starter. But I think you haven't heard this, but Barry Switzer, when he was the head coach of Oklahoma, they're preparing for Oklahoma State. He literally told his players, you better hope Thurman Thomas is getting hurt because his backup is better than he is. And that backup was Barry Sanders. Now, obviously, I'm not saying that Isaiah Bayham is Barry Sanders because Barry Sanders is considered to be a top 3 running back of all time. And Thurman Thomas was a Hall of Famer as well.
Oh, yeah.
People don't realize he was a great running back in the NFL as well, a Hall of Famer. But my comparison was just because one guy considered doesn't mean the whole thing goes to suck. Because Isaiah Bayham is a really good running back as well, and then also the Mandeville's team as a whole is also really good too. So you can't forget about the rest of the team, and that showed. I mean, St. Paul's got up to lead. They were leading 20-7. I think it was kind of the beginning of the third quarter, beginning to mid part of the third quarter. Brendan Kime was a huge difference in that game. He had over 340 yards. He had a passing touchdown and then 2 rushing touchdowns as well. And he was a big. If he didn't have that game, I think Mandeville would have won. I mean, Brendan knew he had a big game ahead of him. He knew it was a big game. I know he would like to say, "Well, it's just another game." He knew what this game meant, right? It was a district title game. He's a long-time district rival, and he showed out and performed. He completed every pass he needed to make. He didn't really make too many mistakes. I mean, he did in the play action pass. I mean, their play action pass package they used because Mandeville was a thing of beauty, and that a lot of credit not only has to go to Brendan Kahn, but also Kenny Sears as well. I'm talking about Lil Kenny. Obviously not big. Ken, of course, Ken's the head coach, but Kenny's the offensive coordinator. He did a great job calling the plays all night against a pretty stout Mandeville defense. That Mandeville defense is pretty good too, as well. And Marcus Zenon, Dylan Henry, who plays both sides. He's also DB. Michael White, the other cornerback spot. They have a lot of really good defensive players. So they're carving up Mandeville's defense all night. However, Isaiah Bayham was scored the next touchdown. They couldn't, like I said, St. Paul's defense couldn't stop them all night. And then St. Paul's would score again off of Brendan Kime 1 yard, like it was a quarterback sneak. I think it was. It is 1 yard run or 2 yard run. I completely forgot, but it doesn't matter. So St. Paul's is up 27-14. Mandeville scores 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter to take the lead 20-27 with 5 minutes left to go in the game. St. Paul's gets the ball back. They're facing the 4th and 4 situation, or 4th and 5. It's 4th down, right? Yeah, and they had a decent yard to go. And Brendan Kahn, he would complete a 4 yard He would complete a pass to Brendan Villa. It looked like Villa was about to get stopped right before the first down marker, but he somehow spun away, was able to break through a couple would-be tacklers for the first down. And then a couple plays later, Brennan would throw a dart to Stone Celeste, who made a great catch on the boundary. And that would ultimately set up the game-winning field goal a few plays later from very short yardage by Drew Talley to win the game. And really, I think that – and really, I also mentioned when I took the 20-7 lead, I also forgot to mention that it was a 94-yard touchdown pass to Brendan Villa. A gutsy play action call by Kenny Sears, and that he's wide open, streaking down the field, wide open, 94-yard touchdown. And really, that game, I think that touchdown made all the difference in the world. And also, I want to mention too, Creighton Wilbanks missed a field goal in the first half, and that was all. And a lot of people, sometimes you don't realize those missed field goals, some extra points mean a whole lot, because if you make a field goal, I mean, we're talking about they would have to score a touchdown instead of a field goal. So kind of puts that in perspective, how close, every little play in a game like that matters.
Yeah, you're right. And that was a huge win for St. Paul's. They've been in some tough games early on, and, they played you high. They are able to win at the gun again against JFK earlier this year. So that was a close battle that they've won. They lost a heartbreaker to Brother Martin earlier this year. So being these close games have really helped St. Paul's and get a huge win over Mandeville. We talk about Nate Shepard and all that, but this is still a great team. I even without Nate Shepard, I think this Mandeville football team that could be a quarterfinal football team, even without Nate Shepard. That's how good this team is.
Definitely.
So this is still a huge win for St. Paul's, and that kind of gives us a transition into the North Shore area and how good football has been in that area this year, Grant. I know you won't talk about it on the show, because with that win for St. Paul's, that means it could potentially be a three-way tie in that district, because Covington is now going to have to play St. Paul's. And if Covington beats St. Paul's, then we got a three-way tie for district. But really, those three schools, those are the 5A schools, really overall in that North Shore area in St. Tammany, Tangipahoa, like that whole area. We talk a lot about Amy and Kentwood most of the time every year, but you got to factor in Pope John Paul, the season they're having. And then North Lake Christian, been a big win a couple weeks ago over Pope John Paul. But I mean, Jules Sumner, Amy, Kentwood, there's some good football in that area.
Oh yeah, definitely, Jace. I mean, and also want to mention, we talk about the Covington St. Paul's game. Now I mentioned the daddy's money chance with Mandeville. You're definitely going to hear with Covington. You're like, if you think Mandeville doesn't like St. Paul's, Covington really, really doesn't like St. Paul's. So it's a cross-arm rivalry. Should be a fun one over there in Covington. But yeah, the North Shore in general has been awesome. I mean, the only downside really has been the Slidell public schools haven't been that great this year.
Yeah.
I know Salmon's had an up and down year, but they're going to make the playoffs. But North Shore had a great finish of the season last year, upsetting West Monroe in the first round. Yep. And then of course they lost the second round, but a lot of people thought they're going to build off of that. They just won their first game, I believe, last week. And then Slidell has been down too. Usually Slidell is pretty good. So but other than that, but then Pope John Paul II has been really good. Yep. Of course, we got to mention Mandeville, Covington, St. Paul's. They're all really good. Hammond has had a good season this year. Lakeshore is they're 17 right now. I know they lost short of the last three, but Lakeshore is still a very good team led by Brent Indes, who's a phenomenal coach. Mm-hmm. And then Franklinton is back to what Franklinton is back. They haven't been. They've had an 8-1 start, I believe, since Shane Smith was that coach, and they will probably finish 9-1. I think they're going to be a top 3 seed in the playoffs for sure, maybe even number 1.
They won district too, so a huge district win for them.
Yeah, and then obviously Pine's still a very good team. Pine's 6-3.
So good.
I mean, Amy's really good. They're going to have a district title game with Jules Sumner, who's 8-1. In my opinion, that's going to be the game of the week on Friday. Mm-hmm. I mean, and obviously game of the week is going to be, of course, as I mentioned, Wilma Carr, but if you're talking about for Friday night, it's going to be that game. I mean, you got both teams have great size at every single position on the field, and we're going to talk a lot about that on Friday nights on the volume. Yeah, I'm really excited about that game. It's actually going to be a game that I'm going to be covering, so I'm really excited about that. And it's my first time seeing Amy all year, so it should be really exciting. not only just title implications, but also determines how long they're going to stay at home for the playoffs, right? I mean, both teams are highly regarded in the power ratings. And then Kenwood's still a very good team. Kenwood's still a team that has a lot of talent, and you can't sleep on them come playoff time. There's a couple other teams I probably haven't mentioned yet. I mean, Jason, if you want, I think I've mentioned almost every team in the North Shore.
Yeah, pretty much.
But the North Lake Christian. That's another team. North Lake Christian. They have a great team this year. Cam Casanave is one of the better running backs, not only in this area but around the state. So, I mean, the North Shore has been really, really good this year. I don't think the strongest the North Shore has probably been in a little while. I mean, I know, the only downsides of the Slidell schools, besides Potomac Ball 2, haven't been really good, but the North Shore in general has been great. And there's a lot of teams where you can be like, okay, this team could make it the Dome. This team is a quarterfinal team for sure. This team is a team you shouldn't sleep on come playoff time, right? So it's a lot of really good teams in the North Shore this year.
Yeah, a lot of teams that you mentioned, Grant. I mean, would not shock me. We see them practicing around Thanksgiving break. If in Travis Bourgeois, he's always had a saying that if you're practicing on Thanksgiving, like, you're a good football team if you're still practicing on Thanksgiving week. So a lot of teams have a chance to do that.
And I think a lot of teams in the North Shore will be practicing on Thanksgiving week for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, Grant. Now let's talk about your game on Saturday. Obviously, it's a little close at home because I know your brother Jackson is playing for Warren Easton and then going through his senior year as well. So I know you got a chance to cover that game, but also see your brother. You go through the senior day stuff, have a chance to, you still got another game after this. But
so the next game will be the senior day stuff.
Right.
It was their homecoming. So
right, exactly. But they have a big Catholic League game against Brother Martin, and we broke it down. And I mean, when's the last time? I know last year Warren Easton didn't make the playoffs, but that was because of all the violations. But we haven't seen Warren Easton miss the playoffs just because of on-field performance. That's basically in jeopardy, and they have to go and win the final two games. But it was a hard-fought game. I mean, back and forth. I mean, Easton jumped out first. Brother Martin came back. Huge kudos to Brother Martin without Easton Royal in the game. Him coming back, not being able to come back in the game. Brother Martin found a way. It was a back and forth football game. Grant, you were there and talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, just it's really cool to see Jackson play and a lot because the last game against Carr didn't really play that much. Because they use him a lot for the run packages. But Carr was passing the ball. Like, okay, we're gonna put in all of our best coverage guys in the game to stop Carr's passing attack, which I mean they had a hard time doing. 62-16. So that kind of gives you an idea what happened in that game. But Easton, and I was kind of worried about how Easton was going to respond after a loss like that. But I woke up in the morning, I was like, I think Easton has a great shot to win this game. Brother Martin's lost 3 straight. They're still trying to get everything together. The run game hasn't been great this year. That's because the offensive line outside of Caleb Smith is really young. I mean, Caleb Smith's a Nicholls State guy, but Nicholls State commit. But other than that, I mean, all the other guys are new, and they really haven't played that much football, the varsity level at least, right? So that's why Brother Martin's been struggling this year. And Easton, on the other hand, of course, they have not won a district game all year. They've had a lot of close ones, so I knew eventually they're going to be due. So I thought it was going to be today, and it looked like it at first. I mean, they're up 21-0. They scored first on offense and on the ensuing possession by Brother Martin. Easton blocks the punt. They score a touchdown, and then Easton scores a couple more times. I mean, Easton was up 21-0 at the end of the first quarter. They're up 28-7 midway through the second quarter, and after they scored the 28th point, which is after a Thomas Vaughn touchdown run, 30-yard touchdown run by Thomas Vaughn. Easton Royal returns the kick about 80 yards down the field. I think it was 80 yards on the field, and so now they're only down 28-14. Then they force Easton a quick 3 and out, and on the very first play that Brother Martin's ensuing drive, Seth Zed finds Easton Royal on the boundaries wide open for 81-yard touchdown pass. And that was the one thing I was worried about Easton, how they were going to stop. Because Brother Martin actually has a decent passing attack. It's just they've been one dimensional because of the issues in the run game.
Mm-hmm.
But given how much, and I was kind of worried about Easton going, with those deep passing plays, and it showed up again. So Brother Martin's only down 28-21 at halftime after, Eastern and the East Royal ended up getting hurt, but I think those what happened in consecutive plays, the kickoff return and the passing touchdown happened in consecutive plays for Easton, and then after that he was out for the game. And so Coach Benitez told us after the game that they didn't play him in the second half because they're trying to save him later. They don't want to risk injury, which shows you how he felt about his team going in the second half, right?
Yeah, right.
And then but then very first play of the second half, Brother Martin muffs the kickoff, and then the next play, Easton scores a 1 yard touchdown run by Carl Reed. But then after that, it was just Brother Martin scored again. Then Easton scored again. So Easton was up 42-28. I believe it was the mid to late third quarter, and then Brother Martin scored 17 unanswered points in the fourth quarter. Really, those last three sequences for Easton on offense were horrible. They had 2 turnovers. One was a fumble, and then the next drive. Hold on, I got to pull up my notes, but so that happened on those last. So Easton had they had a 3-and-out on the first drive, and let me pause for a second. So they had a 30-yard touchdown run by Thomas Vaughn to go up 42-28. The next drive, Easton had a 62-yard, a 7-play, 62-yard drive that's finished off by a 1-yard touchdown run by Alex Diaz. So the score is now 42-35.
Yeah.
Easton gets the ball back, but they had a bad state. So the first play of the drive, they had a long touchdown run, but it was called back because of holding.
Yeah.
And then they had a bad snap, and then they had a run of no gain. Then the next 2 plays were holding, and then they had a 4-yard run by Carl Reed. So that whole drive was just marred by holding calls, right? I think 2 of those plays were called back as touchdowns. Brother Martin gets the ball back. Very first play, 48-yard touchdown pass to Rowan Lipscomb, who, by the way, is the younger brother of Kalijah Lipscomb, the former Jesuit great who ended up playing at Vanderbilt, where he also had a really good career as well.
Yep.
And also, he's also the half brother of Kobe Young too. So his family's got some dudes, and he got some dogs in the family. But Easton gets the ball back, but it was also marred again by penalties. That they got a holding call. Then the next play there was a pass interference because Brother Martin. So the drive was saved, but then you had a false start. And then the next 2 plays were great runs by Thomas Vaughn, but then Thomas Vaughn would fumble on the last play. Then Brother Martin get the ball back, and then that would end up being the game-winning kickoff field goal with 5 minutes left to go in the game. Warren Easton would get the ball back. They looked like they're getting ready to drive down the field. They had a long 16-yard run by Thomas Vaughn, then a pass interference. So it put them at the 44-yard line, and then a few plays later, Carl Reed throws an ill-advised throw to Trent King for the interception, and then Brother Martin sealed it out from there. So
yeah. Big win for Brother Martin, and who says there's not shootouts in the Catholic League? We talk about a lot of defensive battles a lot in the Catholic League, but a little bit of a shootout to really change the pace a little bit. So big win for Brother Martin, and that, I guess, since we're talking about the Catholic League in general. Let's talk about a little bit because we talked about at the beginning of the year that Edna Carr was the favorite, in this district in the Catholic League. Of course, they've been dominating for the most part. A lot of their teams all season long have looked like the best team in the state. And when we talk about, okay, who's that second team? And we talked about, I know we talked about with Ken Trahan as well. And there were a couple of teams we thrown out early in the year. We said Rummel. I know Rummel went through a rough patch at some point this year after the early start to the season. But it seems like they bounced back. They had a huge win over Jesuit, and that's a hot Jesuit team that's been playing some really good football, and they beat them pretty decisively as well. I think 42-7 was the final score. But I know we hinted at a couple teams, like St. Aug at one point. We hinted them maybe being the second best team in the Catholic League, but we go back to that chance for Rummel. So Rummel and Carr next week. What do you have to say about the Catholic League? And after a lot of craziness this year, a lot of teams beating each other up, we go back to the two teams that we talked about at the end of the year.
Yeah, just before we get to that, I also want to mention one more thing before because but I want to give a shout out to Coach Bonice real
Yeah.
quick because after the game, he actually went up to my little brother, told him like what say he's proud of him and stuff like that. He's glad he's having a great year because obviously they're seeing stuff on the film, right? I actually talked
Right.
about it before the game, so about Jackson, he's had a really good year because they've been obviously they're looking at film, trying to find weaknesses for the defense, and obviously think Jackson's one of their better players, which is true. I mean, like Coach Phillips did say that the Rovers were arguably the two smartest players on the defense, along with Narco Dunn, and then their defense is really young too, right? So Jackson's one of the main senior leaders on that defense, but it just shows you a lot about the character of Mark Bonice. Jackson left Brother Mark. Jackson was part of that 2022 state championship team. He played a little bit on the kickoff team. A lot of special teams were over them. He was supposed to be the starting safety, but Jackson wanted to quit football. He left Brother Martin to go to Easton, where he felt like he was a little more comfortable. And Jackson came back and worked his butt off to get to where he's at, start for a program like Warren Easton. And so Coach Benicio, I want to give a shout out to him. And he's just a great dude. I mean, look at what he's meant to the Brother Martin community when his son was sick in the hospital after he was, his son had some health conditions, some rough health conditions after he was born. Brother Martin raised a lot of money to help, his family help Coach Benice's family go through that tough time. And then when Benice went through his health scare a couple of days after he got eliminated from the playoffs, they helped his family out with that. So this shows you, how, what Brother Martin's community thinks about Coach Bonice and what else he meant to my family. He also coached my little brother Noah, and Noah was part of that undefeated Catholic League title team that went undefeated and went 10-0, and so we have a lot saying we've always loved Coach Benice over here in the Chachere household. And also Coach Benice feels the same way. Coach Benice, whenever I see him, he says, "Hey, say hello to the family." He's a great guy. I just want to point that out too. To kind of highlight, even though like a guy like Jackson left the program to go to another program in the New Orleans area, one who eventually became an opponent in the Catholic League, he still went up to him and said how much he was proud of him. And so I just want to give that shout out to Coach Benice. But but going back to the rest of the Catholic League, it's been crazy. There's a lot of parity in the Catholic League. I kept telling people this before Carr's probably gonna be the number one team because it's Carr, right? Yeah. I mean that's self-explanatory. But it was gonna be a matter of who's gonna be the number two team, and then how much chaos is gonna be the rest of the way. And you're starting to see that. I mean, Rummel is kind of the exception because right now they are 8-1, and the only one loss was against Brother Martin. Who just broke a 3-game losing streak, by the way. So their Brother Martin's 5-4. Curtis is 4-4. I mean, Jesuits 5-4. St. Aug's 5-4. Holy Cross, I believe, is 3-5. So I mean, and then Warren Easton, of course, is they're 3-6, but they had not won a Catholic League game, which is a shocker. I really thought Warren Easton was going to. I think Warren Easton was going to win. I knew they were going to have a rough season because who they were bringing back. I mean, they lost a lot of guys from last year. I thought they're going to at least win 2 Catholic League games. You know what I'm saying? Just because the guys they do have. But that just shows you how tough it is to win the Catholic League, and it's a lot of parity. I know it's not like District 2, 5A, where of course you have Alexandria, Rustin, and Neville, of course, and I think that's the best district right now, just because of those 3 teams in general. I mean, we're talking about 3 of the top 5 teams in the state right now, just given what they have, and just how we view them going into the playoff time, which starts next week, which I'm really excited for. But the Catholic League, I think, just had more parity than that league because it's not top. It's of course, it's Carr. But there's no really separation between the teams other than Carr. I mean, obviously Carr separates them. So, although I could say this, Rummel could be Carr, right? So, although I don't think that would happen, but Rummel, because the way they played, they could frustrate Carr a little bit, right? But I don't think that's going to happen. But it just shows how much parity there is. A Catholic, as a matter of fact, and just because a team may have a 5-5 or 6-4 record, that team could be the most dangerous team come playoff time because you saw that last 2 years. Got Rummel last year. They finished season 4-6. They had a lot of injuries. But they're so talented, but they had a lot of injuries, and they were playing a lot of younger players. they were able to go to the semifinals. And really, if that game doesn't get rained out, Rummel could have possibly beaten Catholic because they were playing tough against
They had
Catholic.
the momentum going to the fourth quarter with the game.
They did. They did. Yeah, before it got rained down, they had to play the next day. So, and then the year before that, of course, Brother Marvin's 5-5, and they went all the way to the state championship and upset a lot of really good teams along the way. Where they ultimately lost against Curtis in the state championship game in the Dome. Just because a Catholic League team may be 6-4, 5-5, that team's seen a lot of teams that either are just as good the teams are going to play in the playoffs or better than the teams that are going to play in the playoffs. So I'm but I'll wait to see. I don't know which team that could be. That could be Jesuit. I mean, I think Jesuit's a really good team. We've seen Jesuit have some really good wins, and then they'll have a loss like against Rummel where they lose 42-7. But they beat some really good teams this year. And so like I'm really excited to see what happens in playoff time because I know we're saying Carr, it's gonna be either Carr, Alexandria, Catholic, and then Acadiana, but there could be some teams that could beat any of those 4 teams. I'm talking about the Catholic. Really, and you also got to think about St. Thomas More and St. Paul. And that's all people have. I know a lot of people haven't kind of forgotten about St. Thomas More since they started off the season 1 and 3, but they're playing their best football right now, and that's a scary team. That's a team you don't want to play in the playoffs.
And speaking of that, Grant, you just mentioned, I mean, we talk about Turlings Catholic. They are undefeated. That was one of the undefeated teams that fell this past week, and that was a district championship. And St. Thomas More won that football game. And what do you have to say about St. Thomas More? And it was a rough start of the season for them, but you got to consider the 3 games they lost to, and those were the 3 teams you really talked about. I mean, including Neville as well, but Catholic and Acadiana. But it's shown that that recipe can work. I mean, the record might not be great to start the season, but I mean, that's some great competition you played. It's going to help you grow as a football team, and you see this team down the stretch playing their best football right now.
Yeah, these are, a lot of people thought the Turlings was one of the better teams, not only in the Lafayette area, but in the state. They were undefeated going into this game, and I think they were the number 4 or 5 team, the Division I select rankings, and I know they're considered to be the number 1 4A team above Shaw for a lot of the polls. So a lot is not highly, and so Turlings Catholic's been thought highly of among of our peers in the state, including ourselves. But then you got St. Thomas More, and I said going this game that St. Thomas More was going to win this game because one, it was at home. It's hard to be St. Thomas More at home, but the 2, they're playing their best football right now. Cole Bergeron has gotten a lot more comfortable. You're starting to see why Cole Bergeron is a guy that's going to start rising up in the rankings. He already has an offer from Indiana. He may have gotten maybe some more recently, but I know he got one from Indiana. By the way, is undefeated.
Looking good right now.
They look like a playoff team right now. And then also, but then also their offense a lot more. The offense in general is becoming a lot more comfortable. They're scoring points. They're connecting on their passes. The first few weeks of the year, they weren't really, and a lot of that's because they went against some really good teams. Right. So, and you have a young offense, so you're going to struggle at first. And then they got more comfortable as the season got on. And it's not shocking to me that they won 48-34. These are 2 really good teams, well-coached teams, by the way. But I ultimately thought that St. Thomas More was going to win because I thought that they're at home. I think they had a little bit of a better quarterback. And then also they were playing their best football at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly. And it's showing, and those teams that are starting to get hot, late in this year. And we talked about St. Thomas More, another team that's starting to get hot, and that's because it helps when you return your starting quarterback, and that is the Destrehan Wildcats. I mean, Honville was having a great season this year. Coach Boynes, in my opinion, he should be up for Coach of the Year for the way that he's coached his Honville football team and built it back to what Honville fans want them to be and what they should be in contention for a district championship and deep playoff runs. And they had a chance to win district, and this was a district title match between them and Destrehan, and Jackson Fields comes back, and you saw the impact of him coming back in the Captain Shreve game. Captain Shreve just beat Evangel in that crazy shootout the week before, and Destrehan outscores Captain Shreve in a little bit of a shootout as well. So from that point on, you start seeing this Destrehan team get their confidence back, and it really shows you how important Jackson Fields is to the football team after being Honville this past week.
Oh yeah, and I also want to touch on that too. Is that I think when he was out, they played a freshman quarterback, so that kind of hurt them a bit. But also in the long run, just not even just talking about this year. I'm just talking about after Jacksonville's leave.
right.
It's a good thing that the quarterback got a lot of playing time, just because he gets to see what it's like to play at the varsity level, and that also shows you how much trust that Marcus Scott has in that freshman. To like, okay, you're going to be the backup, right? I'm not sure what the quarterback situation is looking like to make that decision, but to be comfortable with a freshman taking the rounds instead of going to one of your better athletes, which a lot of coaches do. A lot of times they go to one of the better athletes. Oh, hey, you're sick of your quarterback, just run a lot of read option or quarterback blast, or you hand that ball off. But no, they're trying to throw the ball with the freshman.
With those athletes, they got options there they will lean to.
Yeah, so but that just shows you how much trust that Marcus Scott has in his young quarterback. I like that freshman where they'll at least try to attempt to pass the ball with him. So, but anyway, so that's good for it to get experience out of him for the future. But yeah, Jacksonville is very important for this offense. I'm not sure they would have beat Alexandria if they had him, but I think they probably would have beaten. Jacksonville did play against Catholic. That's the game that got hurt, but they probably would have beat Terrebonne, right? I think you would be looking at a team that would be the undefeated district champions right now. If Jacksonville was healthy, and that's kind of drew back that strand as well. But also you got to think about this too, is that they had a big win over Hahnville, and Hahnville's a much more improved team this year, and that was a close game. I mean, I didn't go to the game, but I know it was a really close game. Jacksonville's played a huge part in their win. But also you got to think about the defense, right? Chase Thomas is out for the year.
Yeah.
So the defense, which is a younger version, they're kind of young. They got some young players playing for them this year on defense. So they're going to need to step up, especially when it comes to the playoffs. Because right now, I'm actually looking at the power range right now. Destrehan is a 13 seed right now. So I feel when next week, I think they'll be around that range. So they'll be going to be a dangerous team come playoff time, especially when you have a guy like Jackson Fields back and healthy, and you have the receivers that they have, and also they have some really decent running backs too. So they're going to be a very interesting team come playoff time. I don't think you should write off Destrehan, because I think because the record doesn't tell the whole story, and that's what you have to know during playoff time. You don't know why that team it has the record they have. Is it because they played a tough schedule, whether it's district or they're in a really tough district? So that's why they lost a lot of games. And then also, what did they do during those losses? Were there any injuries? Are they a younger team? So they're struggling early on, then they got better as the season goes on. So you got to look at, like, when it comes to playoff time, you can't just look at the record or the seed. You have to look at the whole story. Like Mickey Loomis says, I completely forgot because it's such a dumb quote, but sometimes you got to look past the results.
Yeah, look past the results.
This is one of those examples. This is a good example to bring this up. Not when your team's 2-7, you're allowing 200 yards a game rush in terms of rushing defense.
Yeah, Grant. One more game, I guess, like in the New Orleans area that we're going to talk about before we talk about some other matchups this past week. JFK and De La Salle, they played each other this past weekend. I know the violations and everything that happened with JFK earlier this year. Like, I mean, it does suck, right for JFK, but it's something you can overcome because it happened really early in the year when it did happen. Your goals are still ahead of you in terms of a district championship, and also in terms of, again, having a chance to have a deep run in the playoffs. And it seems like this team has bounced back pretty nicely, since those violations came up. So JFK being a factor once again.
Oh yeah, I mean JFK. They had a lot of stuff going on in the beginning of the year. I mean, they started off the season 3-1. And all their non-district opponents were against 5A. So 5A opponents. They're playing, and JFK's a 3A school, so they're playing schools that had bigger enrollments. Teams that had deeper rosters, and they're winning games. I mean, of course, they won against Scotlandville at the beginning of the year. The second game of the year, they played against Saint Amand, and they were able to escape with a win late against Saint Amand. Saint Amand's a really good team, by the way. I think right now they are 6-2. I believe.
Yeah.
And that's including the fort, because they win it. The game that JFK won it's not a forfeit, so it's credited the same. So I think they're like 6-2 or 7-2 right now.
Right.
But yeah, but they beat a really good Saint Amand team. Then the next week they played. Against St. Paul's, and they had a really close game against St. Paul's.
Yeah.
St. Paul's is a really good team, but St. Paul's was able to pull away late. And then the next week they played John Eyre. Unfortunately, that was the week after it was announced that they had to forfeit 3 of those 4 victories. So officially, they were 1-4 at the by the end of that. By the end of that little run that they had at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
But since then, they've been undefeated. They just they beat De La Salle in a very close game. De La Salle has been an improved team this year. They've won, I believe, 3 out of their last 4, including a huge victory over St. Charles, which I think was the turning point for their season. But yeah, Jace, but they were able to pull out the 22-14 victory at Pan America Stadium for the district title. In the next game, I forgot to mention they also beat Warren Easton too. I knew after game 1 game they beat Warren Easton.
That was before the San Juan game. Yeah,
that was right before the San Juan game. So yeah, I completely forgot because I completely forgot they played that game because remember that was during the hurricane, so I wasn't sure if they canceled it or not. Some teams were able to play their game, some teams weren't. So they're right now they're 5-4. They will play LB Landry next weekend, and which I believe they'll win that game. They'll finish 6-4. Right now, looking at the power ratings as I have them up, they are the number 11 team right now in Division II select in the power ratings. But really, if they didn't have to forfeit any of those wins, they will probably be the number 2 team right now, ahead of U High, because they would only had 1 loss. So, and it was against St. Paul's, and also their win. Also given how their schedules played out, that I think that's why they're gonna be higher. But also, and really, the reason why they're 11th is also because of their strength of schedule too. So yeah, they did have to forfeit those games that they won, but because the opponents they played, that's why they're the number 11. That's a scary team to watch for. Because I said before the year, and I was banging the drum. JFK is a state title contending team. Yeah. And if you look, I know you've seen this table check right now because I'm literally banging the table. But if you look, let's say you had to do if you're doing the brackets. I'm not sure they would probably have to play one of the lower seeded teams, but then they would have to play the 6th seeded team, Edie White. I think they could beat Edie White. They're good, and then they will have to play Haynes Academy or who I'm not sure who's going to be the one of the Haynes Academy quarterfinal game or whatever, or if Haynes Academy does make it that far. But they have a great right now where they're sitting. That's a great spot for that team to make it run because of the talent that they have. So that's a team you definitely need to watch it for. By the playoff time comes, like I said, the result. Sometimes you have to look past the results. And Jeff, I'm gonna bring that up a lot because it's a perfect time to bring this quote up because
it just happened right before we started.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So it's a great time to bring that up because Lanier South pitch has done a great job. If it weren't for those the games that they forfeit because of eligibility issues, they would be 9-1 right now, and they would be a top 3 team. They're an 11 seed because of those forfeited losses. So this is a team definitely to watch out for, and can't wait for playoffs to start. I'm getting excited. So let's move on before I start rambling.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, I can see if both Edie White and they play each other. I mean, it's good as far as like who can go in the state championship because the winner of that game has a pretty good run to get there. Whoever wins that football game. Now I'm going to talk about briefly. I'm going to see just what your reactions are to this game because I was at this game on Friday. Haven't really got a chance to talk about it here on the show yet. But Dunham and Episcopal played. That was for the district championship. It's going to always be for the district championship between both these 2 teams. I mean, a lot of times Episcopal was the better team. A lot of times Dunham's been a better team. It's just been a great rivalry between these 2 programs. And Travis Bourgeois at Episcopal and Neil Weiner at Dunham have done excellent jobs at the programs. And once again, not surprisingly, it was going to come down to that game for the district championship. And most likely whoever wins this football game has a great shot at the number 1 seed in that Division III select bracket. And like I mentioned, weather, this is the first time that weather really heavily affected the area probably since the hurricane. I mean, just earlier this year. But at Dunham, it was not great, not ideal conditions. The field was all muddied up. I mean, pretty much at the midfield, it was just basically a mud pit right at midfield. But both teams had to deal with it, and Dunham just dealt with it a little bit better than Episcopal did. Really, both defenses did a great job really containing the other offense, and it was one of those games that if you scored a touchdown, it was going to feel like 20 points instead of 6. Just how tough it was to move the football. And the difference in this football game was that Episcopal made some mistakes. They turned the ball over twice, and that led to short fields to Dunham. They also had a big punt return as well. Dunham did to set up Elijah Haven 3 touchdowns. He had 3 rushing touchdowns on the ground. They called a lot of quarterback runs in this football game with Elijah Haven. Knowing it was going to be a tough conditions to throw the football, so they relied on Elijah Haven's legs. The defense for Dunham played outstanding. Reed Chauvin had a couple of runs here and there, but for the most part, they pretty much shut the running game down. They forced 2 turnovers, and they won the game 18-0. So it was a big win for the Dumb Tigers, and they're sitting at 9-0, and I believe they are number 1. I got to look at Division 3 select, and that's 3 straight district championships for the Tigers. It was a great football win for Dunham. This rivalry. Was like I call it, the tuition bowl between Dunham and Episcopal. But it was a great football game, great win for Dunham. Grant, what's your reactions to the Tigers getting an 18-0 win over Episcopal?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of what I expected Dunham to win. I thought it was gonna be a little bit close, but I thought Dunham was gonna pull away.
Mm-hmm.
And really, I know Dunham won 18-0, but that's also because of the rain. So I'm wondering if it wasn't raining, how bad the score would have been. Because it's not like Episcopal can move the ball offensively because they can throw the ball. They want to run the ball.
Yeah.
So imagine if Dunham had the ability to throw the ball down the field in better conditions. So I'm wanting to know how much more could Dunham beat Episcopal? Because I think Episcopal is a really good team, but I think Dunham is also. But I think Dunham right now is the favorite to win the state title outside of Newman. I think those 2 teams I expect to be in the dome. Right now, looking at the power ratings, Dunham's 1, Newman's 2, Calvary's 3, and Episcopal's 4. Yeah, well, these are the unofficial ones, right? So, so we won't know who's going to be what until Selection Sunday. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting. But Division 3 as a whole is going to be interesting. Dunham right now is number 1 team, which they should be.
Yeah,
Newman's number 2, which they should be. But you can still got Calvary's. And of course, I already mentioned Calvary and Episcopal. Bucky's 5. Jules Sumner's 6.
Yeah.
Catholic New Iberia is 7. They're 8-1. I mean, there's a lot of really good teams in Division 3. And the Lafayette Christian, they're 3-6, but right now they're the 12th seed. That's because of the teams that, like I said,
that's
the schedule.
Team too.
That's a team you can't sleep on. Like I mentioned, my brother Barn Rummel, and despite even though they had 5-5, 4-6 records, they played opponents that either just as good as the opponents are going to play in the playoffs or better. Lafayette Christian played a lot of teams that are probably better than a lot of these teams that are higher than them right now in Division 3 power rates come playoff time. So Division 3 is going to be tough. It's not guaranteed that Dunham's going to be the dome. It's not guaranteed that Episcopal is going to be the dome. It's not going to be guaranteed that even Newman's going to be the dome. It's just this is a very tough division. I said outside of the 2 Division 1, the 2 Division 1 brackets, Division 3 select and Division 4 select are right there with the 2 Division 1 brackets in terms of the parity and depth.
Right, exactly. I agree with you there. That's going to be that's always been a fun bracket, even because I know I've covered this bracket a lot because Episcopal's played in that bracket. But, in past years when Notre Dame was in that bracket too, I mean, St. Charles Catholic was in that bracket too. Like, it just made a really fun bracket to cover. And this is going to be, once again, another fun one to cover in this playoff bracket. Now, I know we didn't talk about this before the show, but since it's like Baton Rouge base, since we just talked about Dunham Episcopal, just talk about parity. There's also that 5A district involving Dutchtown, Sam Mall, Walker, Denham Springs. Denham Springs beat Walker after Walker beat Dutchtown last week. So now it's like I believe it's a 2-team race right now for district. I think it's Dutchtown and Sam Mall, but I think Dutchtown would have the advantage because they beat Sam Mall. But talk about parity. I mean, it's that district each and every week.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically a great giant circle of life for that district, if that's the best way I can put it, because it seems like if one team beats one team the next week, that team that won will lose against another team. It's been a crazy year for think it was District 6 5A or it's a District 5
Yeah,
5A?
I think it's 6. It might be
Yeah.
5.
It might be,
I'll-
yeah. It's right. It's in the middle, right? But anyway, but yeah, it's like I said, I mean, outside of Dutchtown, even Dutchtown lost against a team like Walker, right? So like, it's a lot of parity. There's a lot of really good coaches in that district. I mean, of course, you got Guy Mistretta, who not only led Dutchtown to he nearly led Dutchtown to his first state title game in the school's history. If not for if the Rangers get rained out, they win the game because they had all the momentum, and then they had to play the next day against Zachary, and then what happened after that. I've explained that a bunch of times in this podcast before. But you got Guybersher, but not only before, but even before he got to Dutchtown, he's a state title winning head coach. I believe he won at
Livonia.
Livonia.
He won.
Yeah,
I know he
Livonia.
won some. I know he won some games at Redemptorist. I'm not sure if he won state, but he won. He won a lot of Redemptorist, but he did win a state title at Livonia. I know that.
Okay, so yeah, he's a state championship head coach. Chad Mahaffey was the state championship head coach, winning head coach at U High.
Yeah.
David Oliver's a great coach. He's done more with less year in and year out. Of course, Brett Beard, I think, is a fantastic coach over there at Dunham Springs. Livebeck is a really good head coach, Randall Leggett. Yeah, he's got a really good young team. I think they're going to be really, really good in the years to come. If you look at the talent they have, they're all just really young. They're all freshmen and sophomores, but those guys will be really good. And then of course, EA has
Rod Mathern,
who's a really good head coach as well, and also comes from winning pedigree. He had a very successful run at what's called St. Louis Catholic, and also he has a championship pedigree as well. He was the state championship quarterback for Bell Chase when they won the first and only state championship. So there's a lot of really good coaches in that district. So, and like the Catholic League, like they have a lot of really good coaches as well, and a lot of really good teams. That's where you can see a lot of parity, because when you have a bunch of really good coaches like that, that's when you see those leagues have a lot of really good parity, right? So, but yeah, like I said, this district, I said on the Friday Nights with Bayou, this district is on some crack because there's a lot of inconsistency with that league, not because they're all bad, but they're all really good and they're all are really well coached. So that's what happens. We see all this craziness within District 5A.
Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of craziness there, and we saw it last year, and a lot of those teams having great runs in the playoffs last year in that division. So in that district, so we're going to keep an eye on that. Spencer Verrett for over at LHSA Network, he texted me actually in the middle. I forgot to bring this up to you, but he texted me in the middle of Friday Nights in the Bayou and talked about how big that win that was for ERAF over Kaplan. That was a great football game, and Kaplan bringing Coach Loteef back. Remember, they had a run where they made like semifinals like 3 years in a row with Coach Loteef, and bringing him back, and you saw immediately how this program has done a great job this year. They beat Southern Lab this year. They've had some big wins this year, and then ERAF. I mean, talk about the season they've had really too as well, and because they are up there in the power ranks. I think they're like number 2. I believe they're number 2, number 3. I know they're ranked up there, but they got a big win. ERAF senior kicker Eli Felipe kicked the game-winning field goal to beat Kaplan, and right now the Bobcats, the team that we're quietly talking about, but they're up there in the power rankings and having themselves a great year.
Yeah, man, just two great turnaround. Well, I mean, Kaplan had a pretty good team last year as well. They made the playoffs, and of course, now they're taking a new level since Tank Lateef's been back. And Tank Lateef, I think like it was 2018, they were a one game away from going to the state title game. But have they been in the state title under Tank Lateef?
I don't think they have, but they've always been like semi like that. I think they had 2 or 3 years where they made the semis. Like that's how close they've been.
Yeah, because I know they've been closer. They've made it. But yeah, he's always done a great job with that Kaplan program. ERAF had a really tough year last year, going 3-7. A lot of that had to do with injuries as well. And a lot of people thought they were going to have another good year. I mean, last year they're coming off a playoff appearance. I think they went to the second round. So they had a lot of players coming back. However, just injuries and stuff like that happened, and that's what led to them going 3-7. But this year, you're starting to see some of why they were so highly thought of last year. I mean, this year they're off to an 8-1 start.
Yeah.
And they've been playing some really, really good football. So I think right now in the Division 2 rankings, They are number. What did I say? I think they're Division 3. Oh yeah, they're the number 1 team in Division 3
Number one.
non-select,
Yeah.
above St. James, Sterlington, Elk Grove, and Kinder.
Yeah.
Of course. So and then Union Parish is 6. They're the defending state champions in Division 3 non-select, and then Kaplan at 7. So they have some. By the way, Division 3 non-select is actually looking really good in that.
Yeah.
Now coming back to it, it's like, oh, there's good teams in here. It is not as deep, but there's some good teams in here.
It's not as many names, but like it's going to be some parity. I mean, like any of those teams can win. So that's going to be an interesting one to follow.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, but the Bobcats, they're back to what they should have been. 7-1 right now. Their only loss was against Vermilion Catholic and a tight 41-34 loss.
Yeah.
So I mean, they nearly beat a really good Vermilion Catholic team. Who I think will probably be in the dome this year, but I gotta look at the. I just gotta wait for the brackets to come out before I make any sort of final conclusions or pre-conclusions. Like it's not final, but you get what I'm saying. But E-Rounds is off to a great start this year, 7-1. Excellent job, excellent season for the Bats, and right now they're the number 1 team in Division 3 non-select.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, big win. Eric LeBlanc's doing a great job over there at E-Round. Over there, so he's doing a great job and being the number 1 seed right now. I knew they were up there, but being the number 1 seed and have a chance to do that, that no matter what, I mean that's a great year for the number 1 seed in the playoff bracket. No matter what, just a couple of teams to talk about. I mean, up north, I mean Neville. I know everybody was talking about that game at the end of the year against Ash, but you need to beat West Monroe, which is easier said than done. To set up that huge colossal matchup at the end of the season, but Neville was able to take care of business and beat West Monroe 27-14. Just your early thoughts, and then we'll talk about on your show, but early thoughts on what could be the game of the year between Neville and Ash.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, these two teams are highly regarded as the 2 of the best teams in the state. A lot of people thought those could be Ruston and Neville, but then when Alexander beat Ruston the week after Neville beat Ruston, now it was like, okay, maybe we all knew Alexander was good, but then I think after you beat a team like Ruston and you beat teams like Chachere, I mean, you look at the teams they've beaten, Alexander's beaten, you're like, oh well, this seems we all knew they were really really good and they're one of the elite teams this year in the state. But now each and every week you're looking at Alexandria in a different light than you did the week before, and Neville. Speaking about Neville's win over West Monroe, 14-27. So I mean, West Monroe is now at 5-4, and they haven't had the season, but they're a young team. Like we had Mr. Ponte on the show, Gene Ponte on the show, and he kind of because his son's on the team, right? So he kind of has a really good idea of what who West Monroe is, and he's like you said, they're a really young team. So that's why in this 5-4 record reflects now one of their losses was against Pulaski Academy, who's one of the top football programs in the country. But if you look at their losses, other than that, Catholic, they lost against Catholic, they lost against Alexandria 35-45. And they lost against Neville. I mean, through their losses through their in-state losses against 3 of the top
5 teams in the state.
Teams. Yeah. So I mean, and you have a really young team. So, but I was wondering how Neville was going to play. This is going to be a letdown game for them because the next week, of course, you had Alexandria, and a lot of people are saying now that is in fact the game of the year. That wasn't the case at the beginning of the year. We all thought it was going to be, Russ. I think some people thought it was going to be Russ Neville. Other people thought it was going to be Carr and Curtis. Some people thought it was going to be Central and Catholic. But this, in fact, has been the game of the year. We both knew that Neville and Alexandria probably could be 7-2 or 8-1 or vice versa going into this game. But the fact they're undefeated, they're looking to like the top 2 teams in the state right now. It's definitely the game of the year. But if you look at Alexandria's schedule, every game they played, they scored 41 points or more. The lowest points they scored was 41 points against Union Parish and a 41-12 victory. But other than that, they've scored over and also the defense. Now I'll say this: the defense got to step up a little bit for Alexandria. Now I know they went against some really good teams. Blues just scored 40 points on them. West Monroe scored 35 points on them, and then Ruston scored 36 on them. Now, some of those teams are the best teams in the state, but to be a team like Neville, you have to be sound on both sides because Neville, you already know Neville's sound defensively because of their head coach and Mike Collins, who's previously the defense coordinator for the Tigers. But then offensively, Parker Robinson is playing some really good football, in his first year as a starting quarterback as a sophomore. And then Jalen Nichols has been unstoppable this year in the running game. So that's a big game coming up, Jace. Really excited for it. I can't wait to break it down sometime later this week, which will be up either Wednesday or Thursday. It'll probably be up Wednesday. Just we're going to talk about the show after the game, what our schedule's going to be like this week, because this is a really crazy week for us in both, because we both not only go for high school football, but also the LSU Bama game coming up. But yeah, once again, Jace, like I said before the show, I'm really excited about this week for football and all different levels, whether it's high school, college, and then of course the Saints just fired this out. So maybe you're looking for something. Maybe you're looking for some positive, something positive from the Saints, and it'll not unfortunately happen off the field, but maybe they pick up just one more win. I want them to lose as many games as possible, Jace. We need a quarterback. I'm sorry.
You got to start over somewhere, right? And it begins at the top, right? So the Saints are able to do that, and let's see, they're going to move on and start the rebuilding process. And two more questions we'll go over before we end the show, Grant. The second to last question, I want to touch a little bit on airline. Being Bird for the district championship as well, because I know that was a tough district as well in 1-5A, and Airline had to kind of grit it out a little bit. It wasn't like the 60 points they usually put up or the 70 points they usually put up. I believe they won 35-21 against Bird. So but even though they're able to get that win, they showed, okay, we can win a game like that. But at the other end of things, Bird possibly put a formula out there to beat a team like Airline.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of going to be one of the secrets of success of beating Airline when it comes to playoff time, because you're going to be playing a lot of teams that run the ball and that pass the ball, right? So Airline's going to probably make a few adjustments when it comes to playoff time, because he saw that last year. Now, Mandeville had to put up a lot of points to beat up Airline, but they did that by running the ball. Same thing with Southside, who nearly beat Airline the week before. So it's a very impressive showing by Airline to defeat BC Bird 35-21. So it lets me know that at least their run defense is intact, right? I mean, and really, it's not like I said. I know a lot of people rag on the Shreveport Chiefs for not playing defense, which I mean, it's kind of true. But if you look at Airline, I mean, if you look at some of their better defensive performances, I'm pulling it up right now on my computer. Of course, they allowed 21 points against Seabird, but if you look at Parkway, they only allowed 22 points against Parkway. And Parkway at that point was 40 points a game. I mean, the only games where they allowed obviously 40 points were against Evangel, which has Pops Houston, Captain Street, which just scored 68 points. Yeah. And so Airline had to score 69 points. Nice. But and then Natchez Central. Now that's the concerning one. Natchez allowing 52 points at Natchez Central, but you also scored 76. So Airline, I think, is a semifinal team. Yeah. I think so. I think they won't get eliminated till the semifinals. They might get eliminated in the quarterfinals, depending on who they play. That's why I say match is very important. It's all about the draw and everything. I think if I had to go right now, I think Airline is a semifinal team where they'll eventually lose to a team like Ruston or one of the better teams in Division I not select. But I think, once again, but Airline, seeing where they were before Scoggin got there, they finished season 1-9, and the fact that the last few years we're talking about them going as far, being a legit semifinal team, going to the playoffs the last few years, just shows the great job that Coach Scoggin has done with that program. But not only that, making Airline a fun team to really cover, and also it's fun to watch. But it's frustrating to cover because you got to write down a lot of notes and then keep up with the score and keep up with the stats, because you know how it is, Chase. I mean, so I feel bad for all the Shreveport journalists that they get to see some high flying, exciting football, but at the same time they're like, oh, shoot, this guy had a 50-yard game, this guy had a 40. It's hard to keep up with it. Yeah, that's the thing. I wish we didn't have to keep up with the stats and other people did, so that way it makes our jobs easier. Like at LSU, where we have the stats handled, people do it for us. But now, when we're in high school, you got to do the stats. So
Yeah, do a little bit of the work. You're definitely
Yeah.
right. Last question, Grant. Since we are approaching week 10, this is the last last week of the regular season, and two more teams we talked about last show about the undefeated. What the undefeated teams are left. Two went down at the end of week 9. One of them was Mandeville after losing to St. Paul's. The other one was Terminus Catholic after losing to St. Thomas More. And I just want to ask you, there's been a lot of great storylines this year. And basically, my question is, I mean, we just talked about ERAF, right? Being number one in the playoffs for their bracket, which we weren't really expecting that heading to the year. Franklinton, the type of Cinderella year they really have in the magical season they've had. Covenant Christians undefeated. Haynes Academy undefeated too. You can see Shaw going back to being a state championship team under Hank Tierney being a storyline as well. Ash and Neville and that team, that district as well being a great storyline. To you, Grant, what do you think's been the most impressive storyline for you entering week 10?
Ooh, that's a really good question. That's a pretty deep question because there's a lot of really just overall fantastic storylines across the state. Yeah, of course, you have to mention Haynes Academy, the job Ben Powell's done.
Yeah.
You know, they have a chance to go 10-0 at the end of this weekend. And considering that Haynes Academy is not known for football or sports in general, they're known more for academics, and making that program to what it is making that program what it is right now, with the chance to finish with his first undefeated season in the program's history, says that it says the job he's done. Really, I think he's gonna be a hot candidate. If there's a big time job that's open at the end of the year, I think he's going to be a name that's going to pop up a lot. Of course, Jesse Turner, who I'll talk to later today, he's done a great job with that program. They're 9-0 with the chance to go 10-0 right now. The end of the season, I believe that will also be their first undefeated regular season in their program's history. You also got Alexandria having the chance to go 10-0. I'm not sure. I don't know if they ever had an undefeated season in the program's history. But it might be the first. I don't know yet. I don't know. But Thomas Bachman, for him to get Alexandria to this level is quite phenomenal. I mean, he comes from winning background. I mean, of course, his family is long tied to the Evangel Christian program for the success they've had in the 90s and early 2000s. And he's brought that over to Alexandria, making them a legitimate state title contender. A couple years ago, they were very close to winning it, but fell just short. This year, they have a great chance of doing it as well. And just a lot of really just great storylines, Jace. I mean, you got just the ones you just mentioned. John Tartez. He's having an undefeated season. The season he's having, could he finish it off with a state championship victory in the Dome? The end is just overall great. No, just not great, but like a phenomenal 4-year career. So arguably the greatest player that ever come out of that program. And then you got to talk about this. You got to talk about Franklinton, the job that Coach Salt's done after his stint at Holy Cross didn't end the way he wanted it to, and he took the Franklinton job last year. This year they're 8-1, and there's going to be if they win next week, which they should, they will be the number 1 team in Division II non-select, and they have a great chance of going back to the Dome for the first time, I believe, since he was 2013 and 2014. It might be before that. It's been a long, but it's been a long time since this Franklin program has been mentioned as one of more elite teams in the state. Just a lot, but like I said, Franklin Parish, another one, for what they've done this year and beating Calvary, and that opened up a lot of eyes around that Franklin Parish program. Now they're one of the, like a legit state title contender as well. But they're like
your championship too. I think that's the first time they won the title. So
yeah, they won their first district title. So congratulations to Coach Burnett and the Franklin Parish program. But yeah, Jay, it's just there's a lot of great storylines. I don't think there's one singular storyline that you got to talk about this more than others. I think all of them deserve to be equally mentioned because there's a lot of great storylines and just every year in and year out in the state of Louisiana in terms of high school football.
Right, and I'm gonna kind of tie it all together, Grant. I think the biggest storyline this year is parity. I don't think I remember a year it's just many teams that new teams that we're not talking about that are competing for playoff spots and deep district championships and playoff runs. Like, I mean, I've been in for a couple of years, but I don't remember a year with as much parity throughout Louisiana high school football this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like a lot of times we're okay. Well, this team is going to win the state title. This team is going to win the state title, and you say that with confidence. This year, yeah, it might be Carl, maybe right. It's just so some things that could be Carl. And that just shows you how there's a lot of parity. I mean, usually like in certain brackets, okay, well, this team's definitely going to win it, and this team's definitely going to win it. I don't feel confident in picking a singular state championship team, right? Because obviously you got to wait till the brackets come out first, right? Like I usually wait till the brackets come out, and then I'm like, okay, this is who I think is going to win the state championship. This is who team I think is going to make a run. This is what I think the Cinderella team is going to be. This is a match you definitely need to watch out for because this could determine. I think either one of these teams, if they win this game, they have a great chance of going to the state title game. So I won't wait till the brackets to come out to I feel confident about picking a team. But even then, I still won't feel confident about picking a team to win the state title, regardless of the bracket.
Yeah, you're right, Grant. You're right. And we got one more week to sort it all out in the regular season. And at the end of this week, I believe on Sunday, that is when the playoff brackets will be released. I know we'll do something as well. We'll break those playoff matchups down on Grant's show, and we'll Friday nights in the Bayou. We'll break it down here as well on Ballin in the Boot. So appreciate for coming on, Grant. I know you're probably about to go to the LSU press conference.
Actually, I will not. I'm just going to take a break because I'm going to be doing a lot of driving this weekend, Jared. Because I mean, you got to think about so Thursday, I'm going to go to Catholic Zachary.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I'm going to go that because Ken's got the car Rumble game covered, and then Jared Boyd, Vashon, and George Peppers are going to cover St. Aug and Curtis. So I'm going to make the trek to Catholic Zachary, third year in a row I've done it. I'm going to have a great time with Zachary. It's been a little while since I've been to Zachary High School.
Yeah.
Just because now I've settled in the New Orleans area, and now I'm not in Baton Rouge, where I'm kind of in between Lafayette and New Orleans. So you can pick and choose now. I'm in New Orleans, so it's in the southeastern part of the state. So I want to kind of stay here unless, okay, I really this game seems really interesting. I'm going to go out to this game. Yeah. But then also on Friday, of course, I'm making the trek up to Kentwood to go see Jules Sumner and Amy.
Right.
And then Saturday, of course, you got Bama and LSU. So there's a lot of driving back and forth for me. So I'm trying to take a little break at the beginning of the week. So.
I get it. Well, Grant, we'll drive safe this week. All going all over your trips, and we'll catch up next week here on Ball in the Boot as we'll recap Week 10 and we'll start taking a look at those playoff brackets next week.
Oh yeah, definitely. Can't wait, Jason. Thanks for having me on weekly. Just hop on my show weekly. So it's always great to have this back and forth. But Jason, you've been not only one of my closest confidants in this business, but also one of my close friends. So it's always great to help out a friend and a longtime confidant in covering the great sport of football, especially high school football in the state of Louisiana, which we both are very familiar with and we both love covering.
Absolutely, Grant. Keep up the good work, buddy, and we'll talk next week.
Yeah, no problem, man. I can't wait.
Good.
Looks good to me.
Cool. Hey guys, welcome to another episode or another segment here of Ballin in the Boot. Of course, we're always joined by the end of the show with our guys over at Louisiana Prospects. Of course, the gang, the three amigos, like you like to say, right? So Tony and Kenneth, as always, appreciate y'all guys for coming in and stopping by the Gridiron Football office as we do the show weekly. And guys, tell us what's going on. I know we actually didn't do it last week, but tell us what's going on with Louisiana Prospects since the last time we talked.
So we just finished up playoffs and Super Bowl this past weekend to conclude our fall season we had. Good time, exciting times. We actually held our Super Bowl at EA Sunday. First time actually utilizing EA Stadium, and it was a blast. Appreciate EA, Coach Brock and the secretary allowing us to use the facility. We finished our 6U teams. Let's see, our 6U Buccaneers were our champions, and 8U, help me out, Ken. Texans won 8U. Cecil Collins is the head coach of that team.
Oh, okay. How about cool? Leesville great. LSU legend. So that's awesome.
Great weekend for him. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame at Leesville this weekend, and him and his son CJ won a Super Bowl game together.
That's awesome.
Sunday.
Good weekend of winning for them.
Good weekend for them.
Right.
10U, we had the Bears.
Finished
Finished the season. In 12U, we had the Raiders.
Yes.
So, congratulations to all the teams, that were able to finish strong, get rings. And, we want to thank all the parents, and all the other teams and coaches, for their time and come and coach with us. So we concluded it with a bang. Now we're moving on. Registration for winter, our new combo season, winter-spring, opens tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that, everybody. November 1st, tomorrow, Friday. We will be opening registration for our winter spring. We're changing a few things. Usually we have 6 games. We go to 8 games now. We get 8 games guaranteed. And, of course, everybody makes it to the playoffs. So I'm excited about the new format, providing those teams extra games and, gives them opportunity to get better. Like I told you in previous shows, by the 4th, 5th week is when you kind of see the teams start gelling. So it just only helps us to make, the playoffs and just the league as a whole.
Right.
So, but yeah, excited about starting that. And in the spring, we'll give some more info out on that. It'll be a change as far as the rec and competitive league. So be on the lookout for that for sure. And also our registration for our Bring Your Own Team League. That registration ends Sunday, November 3rd. So 10U division's looking pretty strong. 12U is gaining some traction. I'm sure 8U is going to be, we have 2 teams right now, but I'm sure it'll be up to 6 by Sunday.
Absolutely.
So we got that. And last but not least is our end of the year to kind of wrap things up before we kick off the new year is our third annual gathering tournament. That'll be November 23rd, 24th at Dutchtown.
Okay.
So I'm looking forward to, that tournament. It's kind of get some tournaments from teams from out of state to come, participate. So looking forward to it and see who will be our third annual gathering champs in our 6, 8, 12, and 10, 12, and 14U division. So.
Absolutely. Kenneth, you want to have anything to add to that?
I just wanted to, just kind of touch on we just wrapped up our Super Bowls. I think, one of our, even more so enjoyable parts of that, those Super Bowl playoffs that we had this past weekend was during the halftime of our 10U Super Bowl and even pregame before our 10U Super Bowl, we were able to bring out our all-girls teams that have been working in our the little off-season, the training fundamentals league that we've been doing with them, and we actually got to showcase their talent and what they've been learning, showing everybody, hey, we've been working on motions, working on the rush, working on defensive fundamentals, defensive knowledge, and just being able to execute that on the field, just kind of show everybody what's coming, what's growing, and so it's just kind of we're setting the stone here, and now it's we're continuing to build in 2025, and I think there's a lot of excitement going into what all we can do in terms of the all girls teams and all girl league coming up. So we're excited. Yeah, so we talked about the finish of the fall season for y'all and the Super Bowls, and we talked about who won from those age groups from 6U to 12U, and now let's talk about the New Orleans Saints regional and how that went for y'all.
It's tough.
Yeah,
tough weekend.
Tough weekend.
Yeah, man.
It's a tough weekend.
Not all at once, guys. And they're all like, who wants to talk about it? Not all at once.
Saturday.
How about you tell us about your weekend?
There you
go. No, look, we were competitive on Saturday. I will say that the kids didn't give up. We had
close.
Yeah, we came close. We just had a few tough breaks. As any good program and teams and. You play sports, it happens, to the best. So just had a few some bad breaks for us and, just couldn't, get it going this weekend. But, we go back to the drawing board.
That's it. Ready to get our elite groups back together, man.
Yeah.
So it was definitely a learning experience. It's a great way to put it. No, really, it was really fun being out there. It was really nice to see that competitive spirit and the boys and seeing them go out there and really just compete. This group only had 3-4 weeks to learn an offensive and defensive playbook both sides, and Tony and I are very everything's down to time and everything's got to be crisp, clean when we run plays on offense. Everything's got to be down to a T. Defense, we have to know our responsibilities up, down, eyes closed. So for them to be able to pick that up and get it rolling, I mean, we went into this tournament down 3-4 starters. So I mean, when you look at it, that's 50% of a roster. I mean, we got 8 kids on a team, so it's like, all right, hey, let's get some kids in our league that play tackle. And when you get kids that really play tackle for the most part and haven't played flag, that's a learning curve, especially in a short term, because it's learning. Hey, now we got to learn how to pull flags. No, you can't hit him. You gotta pull his flag.
That's a tackle.
You cannot stiff arm him. Okay, you can't block your flag. Yes, you have to let him pull it. You have to use your hips. So definitely was a learning curve, but they picked it up. They enjoyed it. They loved it, and like Tony said, we went out there. We're competitive. We had some really close games, and some opportunities to win some that just comes down to discipline and just making sure that we can attack those fundamentals well. So
yeah, well, I heard it wasn't great for the guys, but the girls made a little bit of a run, right?
Yeah. The girls did. They did good. So we ended up running into a team we played in the Hurricane tournament, the Farm League Colts out of Houston area.
Yep.
Yeah, they got us the first game, but we came back strong and finished pool play strong, and we ended up meeting them in the championship game. So it's tough to beat it. The saying, it's tough to beat a team 3 times, 4 times. I mean, look, the girls competed well all weekend. We just came up short, but we made it to the championship, but we just came up short. So same with them. We saw some sparks. We had an addition to the team that brought a new light for us. Miss Amani. So we're excited about her and, getting her more programmed into what we're doing, as we continue to practice and get better. So we're debating right now, with our family 8, if we're going to do another regional. The next one would be Houston, right, Ken?
Yes,
Houston. And Dallas.
I think
will be the only
December.
next 2 options to try to qualify. So
Okay.
But we're looking forward to finishing the season strong. We got a few more opportunities, a few tournaments. Continue to get better.
Yeah, so still some opportunities on the horizon for y'all, which is really good to wrap things up. And I know that y'all want to talk about this too. So there was some going on in the NFL with other tournaments going on with a change in dates, and there's been a change in that. So Kenneth, tell us a little bit more about what this change is.
Yeah, so we just, this was our first experience with it going into that regional, but like we had talked about before, the eligibility date was January 1st of the year. So whatever year you're in, it's whatever that age division is based off of what age you were as of January 1st. So we all have these teams that we finished 2022. Sorry, what year are we in?
2023.
Thank you. We all have these teams that we
2024. Yeah, we're in 2024, guys. Yeah. I mean, make sure we get it right.
Well, we were more so about when how it affected the teams.
Right.
Yeah.
With the 2023, what NFL did. They changed it in 2023. So it affected everything.
Yeah. So we had
2024.
Right. Thank you. I couldn't figure out the word.
Glad we got that taken care of.
Right. So our teams that carried over from 2023, it's not just us. Everybody. They changed that eligibility date to August 1st. So that takes away. 6 months. That takes like 6 months worth of players that could have turned the next age in that gap. So it really requires a lot of teams to take a step back and have to hey, sorry, like you're not. It's like, am I going to keep this group of kids and add in, or am I going to let my team play up in the next age group? So it's really kind of like from coaches and league directors and perspective, like which one are you going to do there? Are you going to force your team to play up and eventually it'll make them better playing tougher competition until they're ultimately old enough to play it, or do you kind of move some kids over and kind of play in your right division? So it's definitely we're facing the same challenge. 2025 with our travel circuit. A lot of tournaments are starting to change their birthday. 1 or 2 circuits are keeping it the same. So it's like, what do you do with it? So what you think, T?
Like you say, it's tough for a lot of teams right now. Just making that decision to, it's just it disrupts the whole team. You've been working. Some coaches have had teams for over 3 years now,
right?
And you've been working and grooming that team for investing that time, and,
right?
Traveling together, winning tournaments, and then now we come to a point where we got to either split the team up, or we're just gonna stay together and keep going. So it did affect some teams. There are some circuits that are still going by the January 1st birthday. You have some teams that are, that are going to stick, with those circuits that haven't changed yet, and then, maybe for different circuits they'll just have another team and they combine together to make sure it's competitive. Yeah, it's a tough transition. I'm getting calls, messages as far as the league operator, like, hey, what are y'all sticking with the January 1st age, or y'all moving to August 1st? So just to let y'all know, I'm sticking with January 1st.
Yeah.
I don't, want to keep it how it's been going, and I'll allow you to make that adjustment when you go to NFL regional or whatever other circuit does that. So.
Right. And speaking of that, guys, because there is a lot of travel flag football, there's a lot of league programs. It's kind of like AAA, AU. I mean, yeah. Just in terms of travel, flag football, and programs like that. So with those date changes in mind, what do you think it's like the next step for a lot of these travel flag football teams with that kind of being in mind?
The next step is, hey, I better make sure I have a competitive team.
Yeah.
Or, hey, I better add some guys. Or either, hey, I get these, just continue to let these guys play up, which, nothing's wrong with that. I mean, you just going to need to get a lot of work in to, develop your guys to be, competitive. Hey, I've seen some teams that are a year younger, and, a mature team, because you got to realize people play this, and we do it, the age game, the age look, because that January 1st, right, if you're, you're 6, the January 1st you can play 6U.
Yeah.
But, hey, there's a kid that may make 7 on January 2nd.
Yeah.
So that's a mature 7-year-old playing against, some 5 and 6-year-olds.
Right.
So you have some travel teams that are good at that, which, hey, with the age change August 1st, just got to find the guys now that have the, it's kind of like the, holding back thing,
Yeah, right, yeah.
And just get that maturity, so you're able to compete, on that level. So
yeah, absolutely.
Just see coaches, they gonna make the adjustment and do what's necessary so they can, maintain their, programs, organizations, and compete on a high level. So.
Yeah, for sure. Kenneth, anything you want to add on to it? I mean, we're about to talk about, there's a couple middle school games I know I want to talk about. Anything flag football related, anything on that note that you want to talk about before we move on and transition to the middle school side of things?
I think we're just ready to pick back up with where we left off with our elite program back in August, back in July, finishing off in Nashville like we were talking about then. I think we're just, we got all of our, starting to reach out to our parents and players, like, all right, time to start kicking back up. Gonna start getting practice rolling November. Hit a few tournaments November, December, and then January is those Youth World Championships. So we're gonna hit that going, and I think we're all feeling confident. We might play up in a few tournaments just to get some more heat, but I think everybody's excited to gear up for that. And in 2025, as a program, we're looking to kind of expand and add 4 or 5 age groups to our competitive circuits. I think we're excited to do that, reach out and start getting some more boots on the ground at these tournaments out of state. So excited.
Yeah, 12U's definitely excited to get back.
Yes.
All our guys been playing middle school football. And,
yeah.
We were fortunate to have 2 of them with us this weekend. They came out and helped Tyler Sloan and Grady Speaks, 2 of our guys, and all you heard the whole time, man, we starting back, Coach. We're ready to go, Coach.
Yeah, tournaments in when we start practicing.
The excitement's there, and we have goals, for the rest of this year and for Youth Worlds in Tampa. So
they're working on their push-up calendars right now.
Yeah,
they should be doing 20 a day right now. So
Coach excited. We're excited to get going too. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, and guys, it's actually the end of. You're getting a lot of these middle school kids playing flag football because it's pretty much the end of middle school tackle football. I mean, we're talking about championships and league titles and stuff like that, district titles, city championships, stuff like that. And it's been a couple weeks since we talked about it, but we're going to talk about we're transitioning to middle school football talk now. So we're going to talk about some middle school games that y'all went to. The last time we talked, y'all are previewing a pretty good big matchup in around the area between Galveston and Prairieville Middle. So I guess Ken, if you want to talk first about it and talk about the game and how that went.
Yeah, absolutely. We reached out with the coaches and the teams and let them know pregame, hey, here's we're coming out to check out this game, and it was a good defensive matchup. Tony especially was able to kind of get with the players and the coaches as well, and Coach Benny, as it was his retirement game this year after along, I think it was 36 years? 36 years coaching there at Galvez Middle. So, I mean, a great tenure there and a great season for them. I think they just wrapped up, as what we just saw, a undefeated season here with Galvez. So
9-0.
9-0. There we go. And so Tony had gotten to speak with, Coach Benny and some of the players about that game. So in terms of specifics, T, what exactly with that game?
It was a packed house. So a lot of Coach Benny's ex-players. He's a Babin. That's a name in the Central.
Oh yeah. You got Cooper Babin playing quarterback right now.
Yeah.
Sam Mall.
He has a good arm, by the way.
Oh, he does. He's good.
So, good arm. But yeah, it was a packed house. All his former players came back to watch him in his last game. It was nowhere to sit. Cars were all down the road. And you would have thought you were at the second part of EA and St. Amar game.
Yeah, part two. Yeah.
But it was definitely a defensive matchup. Prairieville did a great job. Look, it was stop after stop after stop. Only a one-score game, 6-0, right?
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, Trayvon, number 11 for Galvez, was the only one that could break one and give him that 6-0 lead.
Which is impressive.
Yeah, in the first quarter. Look, both teams have great defenses, so to break one on the run, you're doing something. You're executing and making a good play. So, but it was definitely a war, on the defensive side of the ball for sure. But Galvez came out victorious. I mean, you love to see a game like that where it's just the linebackers, D-line, focus, right? The guys in the trenches, making big plays.